All right. And we are live. The last word. And we're gathered here today for this occasion, a special occasion, and what's been going on in the world of Destiny. Of course, the normal suspects, the cheetah, Ebontis, Tie Guy, Travis, and we have friends. But let's start with E. How are we doing on this momentous occasion today?
It's not going to be long for me because we got a lot of guests here. We've got a lot to talk about. It's been a very somber week for the world of Destiny, and I don't need to say too much. You guys, if you're watching on video, please check this one on video because everybody dressed to impress. It's actually pretty amazing. Travis, what have you been up to, or anything to say before we get to all this craziness?
I say let's jump into it. I'll have time to tell you about the 4 out of 10 games I reviewed this week, another show. Let's hop in and talk about Destiny.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, our guests this week are all returning to the show from previous. Some have been together, some have not been on the show together, but this is, I will say, an unfortunate situation, but I'm glad to have all of these people together for a wonderful conversation. Tonight, we've got ManoDestra, Skarrow9, and Jarv, all joining us for a big panel tonight. So if you guys are going to check this one out, video or audio, I hope you enjoy the show. But gentlemen, all of you here, whoever wants to kick it off, Jarv from across the pond, you get honors, sir, since you woke up first today. How's it going?
All good, man. It's been a long day. I've been enjoying detaching myself from one D2 and playing a different D2. Been playing a bit of Division this week. Just to cleanse myself, really. Yeah, other than that, it's been all right. And in about 49 minutes, in 49 minutes, it'll actually be my birthday. So,
hey, birthday!
Dressed for the occasion.
Indeed.
Salute.
Skarrow?
You should have worn your birthday.
Yeah.
Skarrow, it looks like you got LASIK today. Are you doing all right?
Yeah, sorry. You gotta hide the tears because you say dressed to impress, but I'm actually dressed because I'm depressed.
Yes.
So, yeah, no. Really, this light's just bright, man. I don't know who sits in front of these lights all day. It's ridiculous.
You look like Daredevil just lost a fight when you have those glasses on.
Thank you. Wait, the Charlie Cox one or the Ben Affleck one?
Ben Affleck, because that's more of an insult.
Oh, that's man. He's only doing that because I'm not allowed to cuss for the first 15 minutes.
I gotta get my shots in when I can. So I mean,
no rebuttals. No rebuttals. First 15 minutes.
Oh man, yeah. Victoria got me the sick tie. I'm a big so it was a while ago. It was for a music video I made. I actually ended up not wearing it. But maybe in the future. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Did anybody dress up as any? Well, real quick, Mano, how you doing, sir?
How you doing, everybody?
Yo.
Things are good. As far as I'm going, of course, obviously we've got the stuff to talk about in the game, but yeah, we all look like we're corporate bros, you know. Someone said I look like I'm gonna sell you some NFTs, but I mostly just want to blame the suits. That's all I want to do.
I prefer the title "Youth Pastor of Capitalism." Actually, so.
There you go.
You look like Phil Spencer in the '80s in his coat. Yeah, for sure.
Shout out real quick to Sean Shriv with the $10 super chat. Just wanted to say thank you. Oh, for the solo guide, would have been given more, but the paycheck was 45% less than projected. Too soon to the whole crew. Thanks for great content. Super chat, even getting it in early. Thanks. We are here for. It's been a rough week for the community, for more so for Bungie, for quite a few employees who lost their jobs. Some legends in the industry who are no longer with the company that they've been there for literal decades or more. It's been rough. So that's kind of the first thing I wanted to start at is chronologically this week, Monday. It just kind of started on Twitter. You saw, I think one of the first ones I saw was Liana, and then Sam, and then Griffin, and then Bianchi, and then it just started to keep going. And then that evening, Carson Reed, Cinema Emotions guy, he's the one who I think broke it about Michael Salvatore, which was a big shock and kind of threw a wrench into what my business mind thought might have been going on. Still could be some of that, but it was rough. So news later came out. We had about 100 laid off from Bungie, about 8% of the studio, approximately, depending on where calculations are at. Oh, so first thing I just wanted to see is what did you guys see? How did it all hit you? I'm going to go with Travis first because I just wanted to see where you're at because I know you've got a friend in the IGN world who's been digging into some of this herself as well. Shout out to Rebecca
Yeah.
Valentine, killing it.
Shout out to Rebecca. Reb. Yeah, it was obviously not good to see it. It's sort of unsurprising, right? Like, I hate to say I told you so in this situation, but I kind of predicted like 18 months ago that this was going to be the toughest year for Destiny. Just before when we even saw the Lightfall first trailer, I felt that way. And seeing Lightfall's reception and the online situation, and not only that, it's just a really good time for games this year. And live service has sort of evolved to the point where you can't really afford to make mistakes, and Bungie has decided to make all of the mistakes we thought they already learned the lessons from already this year. And so yeah, it's sort of the perfect storm for Bungie, and not particularly surprising. There is, though, a element of this that I think is probably unrelated to Bungie, which is, if I had to guess, I would say even at 45% less projected revenue, that Bungie is probably still profitable. But unfortunately, right now, there's a thing going on in the world where it's sort of layoffs as a fad is sort of a thing right now. Like,
Yeah.
every company is saying, oh, we're profitable, but we could be more profitable if we slimmed up. And it's kind of just this hot new trend that every company wants to do. They just want to lay off a certain number of people. And it, to me, the economics of that don't really make sense. Less profitable is still profitable, as I think I like to point out. And also the idea that you're going to lay off people who are valuable and contribute to the team just so that you can hit some sort of revenue goal or improve your efficiency, as in terms of dollars in versus dollars out, is something that doesn't really jive with me, and seems pretty pessimistic and sad. And unfortunately, you're seeing just lots of companies do it who don't really need to do it, but they can do it, and it's an easy way to make some extra money, especially if you're behind and it appeases your shareholders and your board members or whatever you're holding the company to. So some people I see in the comments have already attacked capitalism for this. Unfortunately, this sort of thing could happen no matter what the system is. I wouldn't blame capitalism.
That's exactly right.
I'm quite a fan of capitalism myself, but there certainly are shitty business practices and things that a more regulated capitalism might be able to prevent, that I think we probably should look into. But yeah, it's a bummer of a week for people who like this game, and it's been a bummer of a year for the games industry in general in terms of layoffs. And I don't know that there's even a really good reason for it. It kind of seems like it's just the thing companies have decided that they're going to do.
I mean, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to take that jump and have people be mad at you if people are already mad at other companies too, right? If you're the only person laying people off, it's like. But if everyone's doing it, and I think it's very short-sighted. Like optimization of short-term profits or revenue over stuff. Especially at the expense of people's lives, or livelihoods.
Scally in chat just said, my job just bragged about making 100 million last year, and now every warehouse is cutting staff by 25%. It's not, sadly, in any one specific area. It's very widespread right now. Tech got hit. The gaming industry had one of the best years for the games that we got to play, and the absolute one of the worst, at least on record, that I can remember for group layoffs. And then tech is worse than other industries as well. It's been very, very rampant.
And it's companies that very clearly don't need to. Like, the Epic Games layoffs are ridiculous to me. It's like they make the Unreal Engine, which has got to be the most profitable product in tech. They have Fortnite, and they're laying people off, and it is really short-sighted. And I think ultimately is probably not going to help the economy. It might help, in the short term, but like, your consumers have to have money to spend it on the things that you're selling. So these sorts of mass layoffs across all industries is ultimately not a great idea. And I think a lot of these companies will pay for it in the long term. They're going to have to hire up, and they'll lose a bunch of, institutional knowledge and brain trust and stuff like that. I can only imagine the fallout of not just Bungie's layoffs, but lots of other companies that are getting rid of people that they really should be considering the assets that they are.
Especially with so many of these companies on the West Coast, I imagine a lot of people are going to move away for cheaper living since you can work remotely now. Good. And, with a lot of these companies resisting the remote work thing, like, good luck getting people to move back there. Kind of just screwed yourself there. So,
and that's part of the equation too, is just like, hey, we built this giant headquarters and you're promoting working from home and remote work. So a lot of it, I think, has to do with like putting resources in the right place. And that's part of it. A lot of people forget that your main resource is your people. At the end of the day, they're the people. There's a reason why it's called a company. It's a company of people, not a company of just like, because if it's not, Pete Parsons isn't going to code Destiny 2. So at some point you need people to do those work, and the more support you have, the better it will be. But yeah, it's just one of those things where like there's so many resources that you have, and I think that institutional knowledge is a big thing, because I think we've been feeling that for a while. Like all the people who made Halo, some of those people stayed behind with 343, and I feel like some of that institutional knowledge that you talked about, Travis, is being lost as we go through. And it's something that happens in every industry. I used to work, well, I still technically work in education, but this is also a trend that happens in education, is where you have a teacher who's like getting up to be in the ranks, or they're a little bit older or something like that. And it's easier sometimes to cut some of those teachers and bring in new staff and have them just like someone who's brand new. And that could be part of their strategy. It's definitely not a good strategy, because there's definitely a lot of institutional knowledge that is lost because of that. So definitely a concern.
I think, not to make myself the Nostradamus of the Destiny universe, but the we talked about this earlier this year about the Sony acquisition, which I famously seem to be the only person on the planet that was very against. And part of my reasoning for that is because I see Sony's live service ambitions as being in direct conflict with Destiny's survival, because it seems like their plan always was to kind of brain drain the company and take those people and move them over to other live service projects. And I think you're kind of starting to see some of that. Like they may have gotten the pieces that they cared about already, or at least those people are either working on Marathon or something else. And I think you see it in the game. I mean, not to get too insider baseball, but like the Lightfall release, and the people that press were talking to on the Bungie team were not like the normal faces we're used to saying. It was kind of like a whole different team working on that. And I think it's I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like that's normal. Like a successful television show, the showrunners move on to other projects, and you get new writers to do like the 4th and 5th season. Like that's normal. But it does usually reflect some sort of like tonal change or quality change or something. And it's just one of those transitions you have to be really careful about. And I think a great way to make sure you're never going to be able to transition that knowledge is to give yourself a 8% haircut without any consideration to like where the brain trust is. You know what I mean? Like Michael Salvatore, like really? Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
You think that guy's going to be able to, like, is that a replaceable hire? Like, I just don't
that
understand
one-
that move at all.
That was one of the biggest
Seacrest.
ones. Yeah, Seacrest with Deepstone Lullaby.
Deepstone Lullaby. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you sound like you want to go on the music, but go ahead, Cog.
Yeah, no, I mean it's literally that. For me, this is really emotional, because this game means so much to all of us, right? And we've met each other through this game, this kind of thing. And again, I'm not trying to say that it's over or anything like that, but this game is a serious danger. We're not going to sit here and sugarcoat the ramifications of what's going on. And I think for me, like you said, E, with the timeline of the week, and you start to see the tweets, and I just felt the manner in which people were let go was very disrespectful. I didn't feel the level of care. Look, I'm in corporate. I know how it goes with layoffs. But at the same time, when there's people of certain stature that I feel are afforded, a level of respect in the way it's handled. And then when we talk about the vesting and the opportunities that were taken away because of the timing as to when they were let go, because my main issue was that, we were told, and at least it was publicly put out, that because of the acquisition, no one would be laid off. There would be protections in place, between the Sony and the Bungie. This is what they proclaim to their base. And to see people let go at the end of October, because the minute it hits November, you get to hit that vested, those shares. And it just felt scummy. It just felt bad. And, obviously, the human element, people, being blindsided, team managers not knowing who of their own team is going to be let go, the chaos that ensues with that. And then what I find very interesting is how forward-facing and angry people are. They're willing to disclose right now. And this puts Bungie in a bad light, especially in which, Pete Parsons, I don't know the man, But there's two situations here. One, the tweet itself, right? And it's like, okay, this is a decision that you made. You hope these people get hired again. These are good people. But these are decisions as a result of upper management. The creatives, when we find out that are trying to save the game, are being the ones punished and losing their jobs.
Yeah, the people we need right now, right?
And you know what, Jarv? It really pained me because it comes out that they were pleading with management to our requests, to the things that we want for this game. And again, it's very hard to process. And the second thing, which I know Pete and the team probably don't want to come out based on the reporting, was that didn't sit well with a lot of people, was like, we kept the right people.
Oh, I hate that line.
And when you hear that, right, especially a guy like E, you know me, I go so hard for Destiny. I will fight someone in the street if someone does say Destiny's music is not top tier. You know, I feel every year it should be awarded an award based on all the things Salvatore. He comes from the Marty McDonald School. We've had Sky Lewin on this podcast. You know, Seacrest we've talked about with the Deep Stone Lullaby, one of the greatest raid tracks ever. I mean, Skarrow, you got tears in my eyes when you did the show that was with the, you know what I'm saying, the solo, like from Riven, the iconic music. If this guy is not safe and this guy is not afforded that respect, what does that tell you about what's going on in the culture? And it's just a sad time. I don't want to ramble too much. I want Jarv to get in here as well. But yeah, I'm still processing. There's a part of me that's like, you know, I don't know where they go from here. Obviously, we know unofficially that Final Shape is going to be delayed, right? And we know that it's going to be most likely a 7-month season. But the difference is there's less talent. The difference is people are so upset. I'm hearing rumors of people canceling pre-orders. You know, how do they get out of this situation? And like Travis eloquently said, let's be honest. Not only did they fumble the ball with Nightfall and it's a bad, overall year for them, we're in arguably one of the greatest years in gaming. So it's easy to miss Destiny right now. It's easy to say, hey, I don't got to deal with this. I'm over here, right? And that's why for the first time, the joke was always like the Destiny killers are coming, but it's literally like the Scooby-Doo cartoon where they go, it was you all along. Like you take the mask off and it feels like it was you, Bungie, all along. Like you are destroying this game. And it's tough, man. It's tough. But I got more to say. Jarv, I want you to get it because I haven't got a chance to watch your content and listen to your insight. I saw one video, but I'm very curious how you're processing all this stuff.
Yeah, like my video kind of looked at it like I tried to map it out as a timeline because Bungie communicated their plan like 18 months ago, like Travis touched on. And then clearly Bungie's plans on how they were going to grow the studio into a multi-IP is clearly doesn't align with Sony's long-term plans of what they want from Bungie, as it were. I think that what icked me the most about the initial communication was that we were learning about it before some of the people that were affected were learning about it. So it's like, how can they process that? How can the families of those people impacted process that? It's just completely wrong. Like that, it shouldn't be public knowledge before those are being affected or in the know. And then you've got like people finding paperwork that's just got people's roles and ages on it. Like what's the defining factor on who stays and who goes? It just seems like everyone's card keys got put in a bowl and I just picked random people out. It's just doesn't seem to be any common sense. None of this makes sense, to be honest. It's just completely wild. And then my video is talking about the timelines and the finances and stuff, because if you're 45% behind target from the revenue that you create, like leadership has got to take some responsibility. You can't be 9 months into the fiscal year and not
that goal.
Try and change course or make some change, and then be like, oh, we're 3 months away from having to declare our books because Sony's a public company. Oh, let's try and save some costs to save face, because you're not saving face right now. Let's be honest.
There's going to be a lot more fallout because of the PR of this. Because the one thing about Destiny, in the community is that even in the rough times, like the community has been loud and they've been like, this is not good. We're frustrated. We have all these things, but we've always been with them for the most part. This is the first time I have felt that there has been almost like a mass, I wouldn't say a mass revolt, but it's the first time where you have people who I think everyone's going to stick around until the final shape, but I think a lot of people were willing to stay afterwards. Some people are going to leave no matter what, because they're like, a decade of a game is enough. And but there are a lot of other people, like content creators and stuff like that. They're like, we want to see what Marathon has to bring. A lot of that goodwill is going to be gone now, I think, because it's a fundamental breach of trust with the consumer. And I think as content creators, as gamers, when we hear all these things, that we've been saying all these things for so long, like how many times have we done feedback? I mean, I've been lucky enough, you guys have invited me here, and a lot of it is just feedback stuff that we were like, hey, this is stuff, and we've been doing this for years, and Travis has been talking about it at IGN, and these are the pieces of feedback. You have to do something with that feedback, or it just nothing happens. So I think that there's going to be a lot more fallout for this. I think the biggest thing is letting, how do I say this? I can understand people canceling pre-orders 100%. I don't see how they can stop that wave, but I don't want them to fail. I don't think anyone here on this podcast wants Bungie to do poorly, or Final Shape to do poorly. We have no animosity. We just want everyone to do their best and be the most successful. But it's hard to see that vision forward. It will be interesting to see how they move forward and what they do next, because I don't think the usual, like, for example, the statement today will do really anything.
It's a completely faceless statement. They couldn't even put a name
Oh my
to it.
God,
Like, where's Justin
Well,
Truman?
it's
Where's
like, we'll
Mark
get to that,
Noseworthy? Where's
yeah.
Luke Smith? Where's those three? Like, they're the top
yeah.
of the Destiny triangle. Like,
Mhm.
you just don't hear anything from them. It's just like they're the most responsible, because
Yeah,
they're
no one
everyone
wanted to put their
feeds into
name on
them.
it.
Yeah, no
No.
one put anything to that.
Well, to take a quick break, did want to shout out Jay Evans, $20 super chat. Everyone except Ty Guy looks mad uncomfortable in your suit. Ebontis, let them put their nerdy gamer shirts back on.
Bro, I'm vibing. Come on.
chilling,
Dude,
man.
it's
This is like
everybody's
normal
having-
Mano.
Yeah,
This is like
Yeah.
normal.
everybody's having fun.
No.
I'm the one cheating in like the tuxedo t-shirt over here, 'cause I can't fit in my suit jacket right now. So that's
Wait,
what-
E, how long has this been going?
Can you not just like jump straight into it? You don't have to just like, oh, we've been here. Go. I know exactly what you're asking. I know
He's ready.
exactly what
Skarrow's
you're
ready.
asking.
Skarrow is ready.
I was just gonna say,
Let's
If it
go.
naturally falls into chat, I'll give it to you.
No. That's what I
The
said.
stream Skarrow full contest. It does say on the YouTube channel that it started 45 minutes ago. So you're
Okay,
probably
well,
good.
just
You're
say. I
probably
was
good.
just gonna
The
say,
recording's
I'm
about 30 minutes, so
not
you're probably okay.
uncomfortable because I feel how I look, and I look fucking great.
There you go. I'm okay with that. That's good. In context, there's nothing wrong with that. I am fine with that.
I just
Chat-
wanted to clear it with the boss first, I didn't want to get
Yeah.
fired,
I appreciate the request. GK Bowles with the $20 super chat as well. I'm always trying to be optimistic with Bungie. I love this community, but there's no stopping the storm coming. I will play Final Shape, but I have to see the end, but it's just that, the end. And I think that's one thing I've been seeing in the comments off and on for a little while now, is like some people, when you talk about news or anything Destiny related, whether they haven't played in a while, they will play the Final Shape. They won't see anything after that. And then that's just the idea, is how do you sell people on these episodes in the deluxe edition of this game when we don't even know what they're leading to? They won't say much about it. And I know they can't say a lot about it, but also it's, people have been with this thing for 10 years. They're really getting kind of to the point of being bored, apathetic. I've seen a lot of different emotions kind of conveyed about where they are with seasons. Engagement has obviously been low because we literally saw them announce that. And now we're at the point to where they may play the expansion. This news may have lost others who would have seen the expansion, are like, I don't even know if I care anymore. But the drop off after Final Shape, I honestly don't even want to know what those metrics are going to be like that they're thinking about.
Especially if the reports are true that it is, quote, good, not great.
Good, not
which
great.
obviously-
Oh,
That's
Right.
another thing they should have addressed in this release, is about the rumors of the delay and all that stuff.
Right.
Because I think
Notice they
it's
stayed away from
Yeah.
that,
more or
right?
less confirmed. And then there was the other thing they didn't address, which is they apparently are not building their campus, their new Bellevue campus. That
Oh, they
announced
stopping
a
that?
couple years
They're
ago.
stopping it.
Apparently,
Well, they actually have the site in.
Ooh,
Has it got a second
Yeah.
site?
There's
interesting.
yeah, they were going to build a new like campus for Bungie, and I think the odds of that happening became low as soon as COVID happened, because that was a
Mhm.
pre-COVID announcement. But
Didn't
like
they
now
redo it? Didn't they redo it, or because I thought they did like a new? Go ahead.
Part of the report this week was that their plans for redoing whatever they were going to do with their campuses, that it is apparently not happening anymore. And you can actually find that out because they this was something Rebecca Valentine scooped, which is they deleted their post about that from the Bungie.net blog. So there's no longer a post of them talking about their new plans to invest in Bungie as a, all that stuff. And
I did notice
about the Amsterdam office, because they said they were going to open one there, wasn't they? But
I don't know if that was part of it, but yeah, I think that whole post where they talked about their plans for like the infrastructure of the company is gone, which like honestly, that's not the biggest surprise in the world because they announced that they're going fully remote and all that stuff, and I assumed kind of some of that stuff was going to change at least, but it definitely is. I mean, between that and the stuff coming out of the studio about how their final expansion is shaping up,
it makes sense if you're going to really promote remote work. That was the thing that seemed
so confusing. Yep, it was conflicting.
It's like, really, let's champion the work from home thing. Have a nice, like, for me, like I would imagine like one big group common area where if you needed to get everybody together, you could. But then the main office is that not only will you cut the need for so much revenue, because I mean it's West Coast, so everything on the West Coast is expensive, and in Washington Bellevue, it's got to be super expensive. Like Seattle, that whole area, I know it's super expensive. So the more you can do to reduce the amount of space that you need there, it's going to be better for you overall. So I like that. That at least shows that they're trying to be responsible with it, but it would have been smarter to do earlier.
Yeah, I bet so much of that has been planned for so long, though. I mean, that was such a huge renovation, and it feels like a long time, but the remote work is a relatively new thing in the grand scheme of things, right? And especially in a major city like that, those contractors are probably booked out for years. So I would not be surprised if they've had those plans in the books for a very long time, or at least something resembling it.
I mean, and sometimes I think that there's some like I wouldn't say hubris, but maybe a little bit of ego, is like, we're doing so well, we want to keep those plans in place so that we keep the forward momentum.
I don't think it's hubris. I think it's the fact that, for better or worse, that's where the talent is. Like, especially in the games industry, it is consolidated.
That's a good point.
Areas. And some people want to work in offices. This is something that I encounter when I talk to developers a lot, is that they say, ever since we went remote, I'm making games at a much slower rate than I'd like to, and things take forever because instead of tapping somebody on the shoulder, it's I Slack them, and then we set up a Zoom meeting, and then it takes 3 days to get the thing done that I wanted to do. And so I have a close friend who is a former IGN writer who now works as a developer, and he is like fed up with remote work. And so the West Coast, specifically California, has like a ton of talent in this industry. So I think it does make sense to have an office, but then also offer remote options for people who want to do it, because there are a lot of people who live in those cities, and that's where all the talent is for development. So I don't think it's hubris, but it definitely speaks to like a change in their culture. And the most troubling part isn't that they changed the plans, it's that they changed the plans by deleting an old blog post and not announcing it.
Yeah,
that's new.
Right.
That's new,
that's
right?
Weird.
That's a new type of like Bungie communication. And if you look at where a lot of these layoffs happened, it's not surprising, right? HR's first out the door always. Communications and PR teams are first out the door always. Why? Because you can outsource that if you have to. That's what third-party PR companies exist for. But like, it definitely is a cultural shift to say that we're going to get rid of the people that have been sort of the olive branch to the community first, and then make decisions without any sort of
communication.
They saw how well the Joe Blackburn stream went, and they were like, "Oh, we don't need community managers anymore." Joe, start a black stream.
Got this.
Talk to him.
That was the surprising part, right? The comms, right? So many of comms being let go. Obviously, we have artists, we have engineers, but these are our direct line for when we have issues and to see
award-winning direct lines, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. So that was painful to see, and I think someone in the chat was like, why does everyone feel so sad? Like, as far as Destiny not going to survive, I guess for me, it's like, look, this ain't our first rodeo. We've been here with delays as far as, okay, we're going to have a 5 to 6 month season. But the difference is, in my opinion, at least like I don't see, and maybe E and Jarv, you guys, I'm curious what you guys think. a situation where we could have like a 30th anniversary in time with this type of announcement. So then there's there's that attrition period where it's
not
like,
going to happen, is it? So
yeah, like so now you're already in this type of year where there's so many quality games out, right? You've now got the delay, and now we have to tell the community you're most likely not going to have content made to facilitate that gap. I expect drop off. I'm hoping the teams that are left can create engaging content to extend it for a season. But the period before the final shape is very concerning to me. I'm pulling for them. I hope they could do that, but can they do that with less? Can they do that under these type of time constraints? And has public sentiment waned to the point now where it's just like, yo, I'm not pre-order. I got to wait and see. And you know what I mean? Like kind of energy. So I'm just curious what you guys think about that.
That sort of thing is going to affect Final Shape too, like with the community sentiment. I mean, because like good DLCs, it's always just a vibe, right? Like it's an experience with the community. And so now I've seen a lot more apathy than there usually is, and a lack of hope. And so like Final Shape could be the best thing ever, and I think it'll always be seen as less than because of just how we feel going into it.
Yeah.
I think it's very hard to. You hope it's not the best thing ever, or you hope?
No, I hope it's not true that people don't think that way. Like speaking as a reviewer, my goal is always to separate the noise from is this game good, right? We're taking on its own. You get rid of all of the other how big was the team and how big was their budget and whatever. Is the game good? And I would hope that a lot of people think that way because you have to keep in mind
for regular games, but live service games are all about community. It's a constant feedback loop between the entire community.
That's true, but I don't know what percentage of the community is reading the TWIB.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I don't know what, like, the layoffs might not exist to anybody who doesn't have a Twitter account, which if I had to guess is probably like a lot of the Destiny community. It's like not plugged into that world, doesn't care about it. They just want to know where their content is. So I would hope that they could overcome it. I don't have a ton of confidence that they will, just based on the shape of the studio and where their priorities are and all the other. I think they've just made a series of like unwise decisions. But like that's the one kernel of optimism I have, is that like Destiny has always succeeded when it fulfilled its potential, and it released something that resonated. And it wasn't even that, you don't even have to go that far back to see when Bungie did it last. They did it during the Witch Queen. And keep in mind, during the Witch Queen, they already had a lot of their leadership working on Marathon. They already had a lot of these changes with remote work, and so it's not impossible. Like I just want to put that out there, that like, of course there is hope for Destiny in the future. I do think that they have really made that a lot less likely with the moves that they made this week and the moves that they made in the past year. And releasing Nightfall was a mistake. I mean, that took more momentum. If they'd have released nothing and just kept kind of the mystique around what the final shape was going to be, I feel like that would have been better. But it's just such a bummer to see it go down this way.
This is a buddy of mine. He always said this, is that Bungie always, it's like when Michael Salvatore said, is that when things were not going well, instead of like scattering, they reloaded. I think the main concern now is, can they reload? Because they don't have necessarily all the folks around who could do those things. And Bungie always does better after there's like a negative space. Like the next thing that comes out is a banger. Like Forsaken was a banger, Taken King was a banger, Witch Queen was a banger. And that's usually, those always seem to release in the moments afterwards. And just following up with Travis, the big concern is, if you lose your workforce or the people who are doing those things, can you reload? It's harder to see that. And I think that that's maybe what the sentiment of the community is we're wondering, will you be able to deliver on the things that you say you have done, like that you're going to do and that you have done in the past? And if you can, we're there for you. But there's just, people don't trust. It's that same thing, as we don't trust them to do it right now.
Right.
There's also just this question of, I know guys, I swear I'm not anti-Sony. I'm a big PlayStation player, but the conversation around like, are Sony and Bungie's interests even aligned right now? Because Sony's main benefit from the acquisition was the brain trust they get from Bungie about live service games, because we all know that that's their ambition, right? They want to make live service games. And so now seeing Bungie kind of in this place where there's a lot of uncertainty about the final shape and the future of Destiny, which do you see is more likely? But Sony saying, here's all the resources and manpower you need to make this expansion good and more time, or actually what we want to do is scrap you guys for parts and take the leaders at your company and give them better jobs, higher paying jobs, better titles on other projects to come work on live service elsewhere. And the only reason I say that the latter seems more likely is because if they continue to work on Destiny at Bungie, that's not a Sony exclusive game by virtue of their contract.
Right.
But if they get them to come in house on another project, all that's out the window. And we know that they put aside $1 billion for employee retention. And just to be clear, that was not retention at Bungie. That's a retention at Sony, any of their Sony offices. And so I think there's just like a misalignment of like interests when it comes to Destiny. Like Sony almost benefits more if Destiny and Bungie becomes like a cool little side project, AA studio, and all of their real talent moves on to projects to work on AAA stuff in-house on projects that Sony can completely own without any of the weird,
like in their corporate report, like if you in their corporate report, like they got like a table and it shows like live service games. It's got a section dedicated to it, and Bungie's literally scattered across the entire piece. But like by 2025, like 60% of Sony's investment is going into live games. Like Bungie's like a huge part of Sony Entertainment's future. Like for those people that think live games are dying, Sony definitely don't think so.
Opposite. Yeah, exact opposite.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm really interested in.
10 days, 10 games in 5 years was their original plan. Or
that was their plan.
I was going to ask you guys, do you think with the change in leadership with Jim Ryan, with just the feeling of some live service games, watching Diablo and other stuff, and we've talked about the amount of teams it takes just to get a live service game going. Do you think some of the shine of live service now, being as watching some of this stuff, you had Hyenas, which is one of Sega's biggest things, that one went away, and we've had other live things not do that well. Do you think Sony might be pivoting away from that, and this might be a tiny piece of that? I mean, you also say, the other question I guess I have is when you say that Sony wants to pick apart some of the talent of Bungie, wouldn't you want to keep someone like Michael Salvatore and Michael Schreist, is that his name? I'm probably getting it wrong. Within the umbrella, Seacrest, yeah. Within the umbrella somewhere. I mean, you've got the artists, another one who's like a 13-year artist at Bungie who was like from Halo days and previous, I forget. Yeah, I forget the name.
Logo.
Just like, I mean, you've got insane talent. And if you're looking into live service, why do you get rid of community experts who've been involved in this community between Bianchi, Griffin, Liana, Sam, and anybody behind the scenes that I may not know by name? All of those people who have some of the best community experience because it is a day-by-day thing. How do you have that plan? And then those are the people you let go, which makes me think some of the spaghetti they threw at the wall, we know that Condor, Fair Games, those things may exist, but there may be 7 others that may have thought about it. And then we've heard factions got shelved. And I'm honestly wondering if that live service bubble is kind of bursting for them and maybe they may be turning away from that. That's just a wonder. I don't know, but it's also, why do you lose some of these people that feel like they would be crucial to that?
Yeah.
So a few things there. One, I don't think the live service bubble's bursting because a lot of these games that are quote failures are like wildly successful and make a ton of money and then they die off and people say it was a failure even though they were profitable, right? And those people move on to other games and maybe those game servers get taken offline eventually. But I don't think a lot of those, like Knockout City is one that I go to a lot because that game came out of nowhere. It had like 13 seasons and then it disappeared. But like those seasons were made by 30 people and it was like really profitable for that studio, Velen Studios. So I don't know about that, but I do think that they're two separate issues, So I think on one hand, like Sony's long-term plan is to like use Bungie to build out live service studios and become successful with these online games. And then on the other hand, there's but we also have to satisfy the trend of layoffs being a great way to like hack at being more profitable. So I don't even know that they're related. I think they're just mismatched strategies where the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. And maybe Sony thinks of it like, well, I've got 8 Michael Salvatores, right? My games routinely win Game of the Year over at PlayStation, and I have a whole bunch of composers. So do I need another one, right? To work on my live service games, or same thing with art. one of the things that is most like offensive to me about this is the notion that you're going to get acquired and there's not going to be any layoffs. I don't believe that's ever happened in the history
There's
of
always going to
business.
be redundant
because there's
positions
always
and-
redundancies, right?
Yeah.
There's always like, oh, you have an HR team, you have an accounting team, we have those too. We don't need twice as many. There's always going to be like those. So it just felt weird to me from the get-go when they said like this isn't going to change anything, this isn't going to change our team. Like I feel like that was destined to fail.
Yeah.
There's a
Skarrow,
massive
who's gonna,
part-
oh, sorry, get you off. And then
Sorry, I was gonna
we
say
got to get
there's-
Skarrow because we keep cutting him off after.
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
I was
good,
going to
you're
say,
good.
like, there's like a massive part that during COVID, like a lot of these companies probably bloated quite a lot because, like you touched upon earlier, like their efficiency to be able to produce what they wanted to was just elongated. It just took so much longer, so they needed more people. But now the world's kind of going back to a place that we considered normal. Like, I know they spend loads of money on the studio, but they are remote first, so it's like that's probably that's for me is some of the reasoning. But what I don't agree with is how they've just conducted themselves for a company that's always prided themselves on putting their people first. They've literally put them like they couldn't put them any further at the back of the queue. Like it's insane.
Yeah.
How they talk about respect in their latest like post, but they couldn't show any less respect to the people they let go.
I just don't know. The other thing that is mentioned is like it's terrible for the 100 approximately that lost their jobs. For all of them, they have very short window going to the holidays without a job. Yeah, they I think have some
Well,
benefits with Cobra and
It's
everything
such a
else.
hard time.
I was
Yeah,
like, and
really
then
good
hiring
stuff.
freezes or something that's going on right now, and everything else from my other
Mhm.
friends in that type of setting. It's like you're not going to find one, and then you're jumping into a new year. And right now, tech layoffs are everywhere. So it's like, okay, you and 1,000 other people apply for every single job. It's in a horrible place. The other thing, though, is just the status of what's going on in the company still at Bungie of the people who remain. They've got survivor's guilt because they're still there and their friends are gone. I talked to a couple of people that I know. They said one of the worst ones is I went to go message somebody and said unknown person, just
that's the thing.
they're
Yeah.
gone. So
Yeah.
you've got these people that are saying we're still here, but they're also in a terrible mind space because of what the entire company just went through. Nobody wanted to put their name on the article today, and I'm honestly surprised we got one. I'm glad they didn't like make somebody like Cosmo. Hey, Cosmo, I know you're still one of the few community people. We need to write a twid today, and he'd probably be like, "You can kiss my hindquarters," kind of thing. To say, it's like you just kicked my whole team out of here. It's like, what? How is this gonna go? So part of the fact is the people that are left over now. For one, as you guys said it earlier, the Pete Parsons line of "we kept the right people," and you look at the people you just lost. If like all the people that you lost are gone, that's
They
I
didn't
don't.
lose them.
They let them. They
fired
intentionally they
them.
fired them. Yes, they
Yeah.
laid them off per se, but didn't fire them. But either way, it's the fact that you had a friend that was working with you or somebody you bounce an idea off, whatever it is, and that whole just like window of somebody that you might have a meeting with is now gone. Friends are gone out of there, and all of that feeling within the company. And now they're gonna like, hey, we have to buckle down even harder. It's probably gonna be one of those times where it's never a point where, hey, somebody's gone, you're gonna get less work. People are gonna have the same job, same title, same salary, and have to do more work, which is never a great thing for all the people in there. And it's just I don't the morale in there right now, it's bad out here, but the morale in
Yeah.
the company has just got to be awful
So,
right
yeah,
now
it's gotta be
to
bad.
everybody in every
We got
department.
nothing done this week, right? Like,
No, absolutely nothing got done this week. I mean, you look some here, and this is one of those where it's like before you ask, I won't mention it by name just to be sake. It's on Twitter, but you can find it. But it's like before you ask, there are plenty of things I'd like to say, but nothing I say will make a terrible situation any better. And I've seen multiple people who are still at the studio say that they don't want to say anything right now because there's not anything
Yeah.
that's going to come out great. If you work in the industry and are hiring, please reach out to those affected. And somebody's like, who replied was like, I know everyone likes to make the "we're listening" memes, but it's clear that you guys were listening to us all along. It's the decision makers who decided that we're not worth listening. And the person replied, I really wish the community realized how much the community team advocates for them. And we just lost most of that team. One of their primary functions was to monitor the community feedback and collate and aggregate it into something actionable for the team. When they say we're listening, they are not joking. And now we're like, who's going to be listening? That's one of the
Right.
things I think that hurt a lot of us as players, is because we now feel like it's just truly going to fall on deaf ears because we know how many people we just lost.
Yeah. Scott, what you get in there? I know you had a couple thoughts
All
earlier.
right, 12 conversations ago, I have two things.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Oh, I know. We've been bouncing around on so many topics.
no,
I can't
you're
say
good,
this is
you're
going to
good,
be an
you're good.
organized podcast. So
The
everybody.
first thing, and this comes from my personal experience. So like everyone asking why Salvatore got laid off and all these legacy people, it is almost certainly because their salaries are the
Exactly.
equivalent of
Financial, baby. That's what I was
3 or
about to say.
4 other people. And so
Mhm.
the difficult decision is, do you get rid of a legacy member and save 4 other members, and then you just you go to Fiverr and you ask someone to write a theme song for the next expansion? You can do that way cheaper. And it's like, I'm not defending that. I think that's an awful move, especially someone who is very clearly close to retirement. I don't know if Bungie ever did pensions or anything like that, but he's 70 years old. He wasn't planning on sticking around for much longer, for sure.
Yeah.
And I just hope he didn't get screwed out of any Social Security or pension benefits or anything like that.
Shares.
Or share, that, because that would be disgusting. But that is the business justification.
He would have been one of the people making money when they sold to Sony, so I'm sure that was his payout. So
yeah. Okay, so that was the first one. Second off, and part of my question was going to ask Travis if you had heard any of this, but the other day I was talking about the same games as a service, live service stuff with Sony, and Chad actually sent me, I think it was 3 different articles that were all published in October, talking about insider reports that Sony was stepping away from games as a service, specifically from Naughty Dog and Sony game, like their independent studio as well. And I mean, like literally 2 weeks ago type of reports. And that was part of like the overall like cost cutting stuff that is thought to have rolled into this. And a lot of the speculation was that they were really worried about that because the Microsoft acquisition went through. So now Microsoft owns like all of these studios that in some shape or form already have ongoing live service games, and they were just worried they couldn't compete. So I didn't know if Travis had heard any kind of more insider industry stuff, but
yeah, my understanding is that they made their, for whatever reason, I don't know if this was a Jim Ryan thing or whatever, but they were like, oh yeah, every studio should have some sort of like online live service component. And that basically Bungie, after looking at the Naughty Dog project, were like, maybe this isn't their strength. Maybe you shouldn't have every studio try to work on this. It really is a specific type of game. So I think it was one of those things where they had ambitions, and part of that was acquiring Bungie. And then when they acquired Bungie and talked to Bungie, Bungie was like, actually, that's not really how you want to do this. And so I think they reeled back their plans a lot. They're now saying, let's not do, Naughty Dog should be making single player story games, period. Right. Like that's what they are good at. And that's more importantly what their team wants to build. Right. And so they should work on that. But they still have, Sony would be dumb to be looking around and not think like, how do we become the next Fortnite, right? How do we create that? Like they need something like that. And the fact that they don't really have any online games except Destiny, which is a game that they can't make exclusive because of the way the acquisition went through. I think that they are pulling back, and I think Jim Ryan's departure might have been related to like an overconfident, he sort of overbet on it maybe. But I think it absolutely is going to be a huge part of their portfolio going forward. And it's clear that not all those projects have canceled. A lot of them are still working, and the vast majority of them we have not seen at all. And one of them, by the way, is Marathon. So I mean,
so guys, do you think that that's part of the pressure, is the business pressure of we need to be the next Fortnite? Because I feel like so many of the models that Bungie took away and started to do with their monetization is part of that, like offering $20 skins. And I feel like that's what a lot of the market was leaning into. What do you guys think of that? Do you think that that's part of it? Travis, have you heard anything with the whole live service thing? Because I've seen more live services fail that aren't Destiny. I feel like Destiny is like the one live service that was mostly done well. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
I think Fortnite and Apex easily fall into that too.
Yeah, I think every company is like trying to say like, look, this is such an easy moneymaker. Like we need to at least make bets there. But there's this weird dynamic happening where in order to be a successful live service game, you have to sink enormous money into it. And if that game doesn't hit, then you're screwed and you're going to lose 3 teams, right? Because like Diablo 4 is a great example because they knew Diablo 4 was going to be successful. There was no risk really in the game completely failing. And so they said, well, we're going to hire live service teams that work on the first, second, and third season before the game is even out, and we're going to like fully invest in that. And in a way, that's the only way to be successful, because if you do the alternative and you just make a great game with no live service behind it, then it loses steam in that first year, and it risks dying, even though you could have had a hit on your hands. We call those the Halo Infinites, right? Like the game comes out, it's great, and then they have absolutely no plan to support it, and they suffer for a year. And so there's like this weird thing where the only people who can really reliably make live service bets like that are the big ones. And I think they're realizing that, and all of them are trying to make those bets, because you can only have so many like knockout cities, which again was a success, even though it fell apart at after 12 seasons or whatever. It made money for that studio, and that studio is going to go off to make, you know, other games and stuff like that. So I think the problem is like our idea of what makes a successful game in live service is very wrong, I would say, because like you wouldn't say God of War Ragnarok is a failure because people aren't playing it now. You know what I mean? But you would say that if it was a live service game that came out the same day as Ragnarok. And so the question really is like, how long does a game have to be crushing it in the live service space for us to say, okay, that was a success, and it's not the biggest thing in the world if it goes away now? Because like Destiny, if it stopped after Final Shape, would people go, oh, it failed? You know what I mean? Like, no, it was a dominant game for 10 years, and it just at some point ended. And so I think the industry is still searching for like what does sunsetting a live service game look like, and how do you quantify it not being a failure? And I think the way consumers look at that is if the game ever stops being a thing, if it's not Fortnite, it's going to run for 50 years, it's a failure. And that's just not true. I don't think that's a fair way to judge live service games.
Yeah.
That's something that I thought that was interesting, talking about the PlayStation component, because for me, PlayStation has always been that single player driven environment, right, guys? And so like to me, it seemed like this weird disconnect. Like God of War, like both of them were just bangers. A Sekiro, like there's just a ton of single player games. So it seemed weird for me for a strategy, if you're looking for more revenue, to hop into like a completely different ecosystem of hey, we're going to do live services. That's why I asked the question. Like, do you think they're chasing something?
I think what it is that even though, you know, during Jim Ryan's tenure, one of the things he always stressed was that we have these great games, these cinematic experiences. I call them the hashtag just once. You know what I mean? The AAA, high narrative, high fidelity production value, but he doesn't feel
IP.
Exactly, new IP with there you go. You know the vibe. You know the vibes. So it's like he just doesn't feel the revenue is justified. If you look at when they had Activision, that deal, that majority of their revenue is coming from that. So they're looking. Happy birthday.
Happy
Thanks,
birthday
he gets some party
to
hats.
Jar. Happy birthday to Jar.
Hey, that's trademark. Copyright infringement. Somebody call it.
No, but yeah,
I didn't sing that on key. There's no way that's copyright infringement. Are you kidding me? Hardest song to sing.
Happy birthday, job. But yeah, I just think they look at, you know, the Fortnites, they look at the Call of Duties, they look at how much revenue can be achieved, and if you look at the recent pivot, a lot of it has been a lot of like remastering of, like, for example, Last of Us and things like that, trying to get blood from that stone, so to speak, because they want to make more revenue from these games. They feel these games are blockbusters, should be bigger than what they are. So I don't think the pivot to live service is incorrect, but I do agree with you, Mano, in the sense that the studios and the talent that they have necessarily is not really equipped for that per se.
And I don't think it's a pivot either. I think that what they're trying to do is they're saying, look, the thing that we're good at, and Nintendo's great at it too, is they have a bunch of valuable first party IPs and they win awards. And that's what you need. That, like, that's something Microsoft
critical
doesn't
acclaim.
have. Microsoft has lots of like great online games that I'm sure make a ton of money, but they don't have critical acclaim.
Right.
You see them chasing that, right?
Right.
And then Sony's the exact opposite, where they've got the critical acclaim, but their games cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make, and you only need 2 to fail in a row before you are in danger.
In trouble.
Company,
and the economics of the way those games work, it doesn't work long term.
You have to make enormous bets for a $70 one-time payment that if people don't buy your game, if that happens 2-3 times in a row, you legitimately are looking at trouble in your company. And so
microtransactions.
They're charmed by the fact that they have really not had any huge misses in the first party realm. But the second that happens, you start to look at that model and go, oh, like what's the issue here? But if you try 10 live service games and one of them is successful long
All you
term,
need, yeah.
that's all you need. It's your cash cow.
Yep.
And then you have an answer for, if you're an online player, if you're the type of guy who likes to log in every week, here's your answer for you. And I think that them buying Bungie was such a smart idea, because now it's like they already have that, right? They've got the online game that is super popular and makes a ton of money, and it doesn't require
Maybe.
a ton to maintain. You're not putting hundreds of millions.
Not enough.
I still think it makes money. If it doesn't make, if it's 45% of your revenue goal short, then you set your goal too high, right? But
Well, I do
bet you
agree
it
it's
was
too high.
profitable.
For
Oh,
sure.
100%.
I bet
Yeah.
you it was
I think-
profitable. Yeah,
I was like,
no
I
way.
also think this year has a combination of a lot of factors, whether it's like, if anybody's who's ever been around or seen the world of sales, quotas are always set too damn high. Every time it's always about growth, exponential too damn high. That's how literal expectations for sales always is going to be. So you always have to
And
guess too high.
Usually your projections are higher the year you get acquired, because you are trying to pufferfish a little bit to the companies that are acquiring you.
And
being
I was
like,
wondering
here's
how
what
much
we
they
expect to
inflated
make
those
next week.
numbers.
Hey, next year we're going to make this much money. And then when you don't make it, you go, bummer. Too bad you paid that extra high price for us, huh, Sony?
No,
Yeah.
exactly. I
But
did
yeah,
want to
that's-
comment real quick, and I'll let the birthday boy answer this one, what he thinks about it. In reference to, like, we talk about the future, right? And we talk about, obviously Final Shape, but I do want to talk about Marathon in the sense of, there's a part of me that this is a big bet that they're taking, right? In the sense of an extraction shooter, right? In this day and age of live service, and the thought process of, if Destiny is the moneymaker, right? And that's your foundation of revenue, so to speak, but you've kind of neglected it in a sense, and then you've given all the attention now to this new thing, which we don't, not saying it's going to be fair. We generally know whatever Bungie puts their minds to generally feels good, shoots good, plays good, but we have to see if it's going to have that stickiness, right? We're going to have to see if it has that same type of engagement that Destiny has. So I was curious, Jarv, like, how do you feel with the Marathon bet and long-term with Destiny in general? Like, how do they maneuver this based on the situation we know at hand now?
I think we already know probably a bit too much about Marathon, because people can't hold themselves to an NDA, but that's a different conversation. But I think it makes sense for them not to have a game to compete with their own, their own baby at the end of the day. So, like, to have Tarkov people play your game and trying to aim for a different part of the PvP community versus the one that you've already got is absolutely the right thing to do, because you naturally will get people from Destiny naturally try Marathon out anyway, right? All the PvP element of Destiny will do that, but you need to build on top of what you already have rather than compete against yourself, kind of thing. I do think that if they have delayed the Final Shape and they've therefore delayed Marathon, that there's 650 people working on Destiny is actually more than I thought was working on Destiny. Have they pulled some back from the Marathon project? Because if Destiny needs to move forward from here, right? Because Destiny's their only moneymaker at this moment in time. Marathon doesn't make them money. It will do eventually, but they need to make sure they don't compete against each other. But
Correct.
That's kind of where I am with it, really. I feel like we know too much, which we shouldn't do.
It
Yeah.
also goes to what Travis was saying, is what happens when a live service model game ends or unravels or gets to the point where it's like we're not really developing more content for it. Are we leaning directly into Marathon? I think that's something we have not really seen in gaming. I mean, maybe Travis, maybe you know a better example than I do, but that's the question, is like, we had so much goodwill from Halo to Destiny. Like, we were just like, Halo series, Bungie's great. And then when they jumped to Destiny 1, even though there were some mixed reviews, we stayed with them because of Halo, right? Like, not just because of Halo, but because the shooting felt good, just what everybody said, and LordCognito said, Destiny has always felt good to play, to shoot, regardless of the gear or the other activities. It is the banger of all bangers when it comes to how that feels. The real question is, how do they jump if they've lost some of that community sentiment to Marathon, especially given what Cross said was that Tarkov folks were not digging it. I don't know, because I've never played Tarkov.
I don't think that's I think the whole Tarkov thing's a whole nothing burger. How many PUBG? Yeah, how many Fortnite players do you know that like PUBG?
Right, that's a good point.
Good point.
It's Tarkov is super hyper realistic. That's not how Bungie does games. They're much better at wider appeal, wider accessibility. type of stuff. Even if it's an extraction shooter, I think it'll be closer to like Call of Duty DMZ type of stuff, where it's not as harsh, but even more Bungie-ish, high tech, family friendly type of stuff.
It surprises me that they didn't bring Destiny folks in too.
That doesn't surprise me at all. You don't
think so? Okay.
Well, Destiny people suck at NDAs, like real bad. and two,
man, that's been fun this week to watch.
You bring one PvP person in, and they don't like how Marathon feels. They're breaking the NDA, and they're spreading. They killed Destiny PvP for this.
Facts. You're right.
That's a good point.
You're right. They're gonna go crazy. Yeah.
Destiny PvP content creators are the saltiest people, for good reason, on the planet. You keep them as far away from that game as possible for as long as you can.
Well, also,
Corporate Cog agrees.
Well, also, you've got the idea is like if they are trying to grow their business, they don't want to just cannibalize one game just to bring people to another game. So they do want to try and get into somewhat separate genres. I mean, PvP is something they haven't focused on much in a while, and we know that.
Right.
But if they are trying to get into something like an extraction shooter, very different art style, whether it is vibrant colors or whatever it may be, it's probably not like whatever the gummy bear rumor is, but it is going to be a different audience. And that's why, at least the rumor that I heard when Marathon had its promotions and the marketing, which shout out to the guy who no longer has a job as well for Marathon marketing.
The
he lost
Marathon
his
marketing
too.
got let go. Yeah,
and he was just like, and people were like really sad about that. They're like, what?
Yeah.
No, like,
and thank you for my most popular video in the last 2 years. Person who made the ARG, I'm really appreciate it.
Salute.
Yeah, no kidding, man. No kidding.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be that whole.
I just like to ask those questions because
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of things like that go behind game development that content creators and I think the greater community don't see. And like putting that math together of like, who are you going to bring in? Who are you trying to market this to? Because this was something I was discussing with my chat. There's a lot of comparisons that can be made between the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Disney and Bungie. Like there's a lot of like we had those great moments of like Infinity War / Taken King or Forsaken. We had those big moments and now it seemed like things are starting to peter out. And the question is, how do we get out of this? Who are you making these things for? Who's going to invest the time in it? So if you're trying to get the Tarkov shooter folks coming in, I'm just interested because, again, I've never played that. That's not a game I played. I do mostly Apex, Call of Duty, Destiny. I would love to have. What was the game before Apex? I can't remember it. Titanfall.
Titanfall.
I would just love to have a Titanfall 3. That's what I played before Destiny. But it's just trying to think of like what niche are they trying to fill with that? Because Destiny PvP feels great, but I think you've got a good point, Skarrow, is that it could get worse if you bring those people in. But I don't have that experience, so I just like to ask questions.
I really think they're trying to capture, the PvP thing, but it seems like they're leaning way into secrets and mysteries and stuff. And that is a part of the gaming industry. We see it with like even Alan Wake, like that sort of cerebral. It's obviously different, but it's like I
know.
People are.
We're not here
really
to talk about it.
Hungry.
I know. Sorry.
People are really hungry for the secret, mysterious type of stuff, and it's something that hasn't been filled in the gaming industry since like Treyarch Zombies died with Black Ops 4. So I think, and I directly asked Christopher Barrett that. I was like, "Is this trying to do that?" And he was like, "Yes." So
there you go.
Yeah.
That's a niche it's trying to fill. And to be fair, in Destiny, it feels like all the secrets that we've been having have been data mined. Like that's been the big problem is like all these cool things that we're like, oh yeah, it's in the store. The first week we know, just look into everything. It's data mined. And so it's like, ugh. Because that was one of the things that drove us in the opening days of Destiny 2 and Destiny 1 is like those cool secrets. What's around the corner? Well, like explore all these different spaces. And now it just doesn't have that magic anymore because of that. But if they're going to do those things with Marathon, that could be way different.
The person who did Niobe Labs and Quarters at the time also left. Those were mostly single person endeavors. So those were they were teams obviously working on different aspects of it, but the mastermind behind it was a single person. And my understanding is they haven't been at the company for a while.
Yeah, so. I got a question in reference to now the way things shift, right? Obviously the delay, and then remember after Final Shape, we're supposed to have the episodes, right? That's how this thing is supposed to continue. So I'm just curious, like, how do you think this affects the roadmap post Final Shape as well? And again, the number one question, how do you handle and navigate a 7-month season? Like,
Well,
how do you keep retention?
the way right now it sounds is, first off, I think it's just going to be quiet. I don't think this is something that they can pivot and pull content out of their butts, because that takes 6 months or so, maybe longer, to build content that they usually have a plan for. The 30th anniversary is something that had to be planned a little bit in advance, between the dungeon and Dares of Eternity, and you had the weapons that were involved. All of those teams take time to put that stuff together, and we're getting ready to see this new season coming up in like 3 weeks. Can they make a set of, content pieces that would satisfy that drought in 3 months? Maybe, but I highly doubt it, because the whole point is, if Final Shape is good, not great, and that's the rumor internally, and they need Final Shape to be an absolute, like, one of Travis's best reviewed expansions. Like, if it's not at the level of 8 or 9, if it's a 7, if it's a 6 for the Final Shape, the end of your 10-year saga, you can't do that. So this
No.
has to be something that, if people log in and they say, damn, Final Shape was good, all right, I might check out that episode in a couple of weeks. But if it's even remotely mid, if it's like, okay, this happened, yeah, this is here, okay, there's still a bunch of, if it just has the same feeling, if it's anywhere flirting with Lightfall, obviously that's real trouble. Witch Queen was really good,
Yes, it was.
but there were still
Oh,
things
yeah.
about Witch Queen that were missing. Forsaken was on another level because of the amount of help they had. Vicarious Visions, High Moon Studio, they had the Activision backup, and we had another destination that was a surprise, and then a raid, and then we got our first dungeon. They were just pulling surprise after surprise after surprise because they had the support.
Right.
So if you have an extra 4 months, there's no way you want to try and have a weak expansion be your last expansion, potentially, because, as when we've talked about it before, what is the episode's going to look like? Whatever they may be working on, whether it's a D3, whether it's a big refresh, whatever it is, when it comes to those episodes, we could have 3, 4, 5, 6 before we might see something big. And you can't have your last expansion in the past 2 years have been meh, because those expansions are not going to have the player base that's going to support it. I mean, you can look right now on the Steam charts, and it's not doing too great, obviously, for
Yeah,
it
but
being
I would
later.
even bad expansions are going to make more money than episodes any day of the week, though.
Right.
You
Because
know,
expansions people at least hop into. The
Yeah.
comparison that I've used on stream with my chat and my community is it can't end like Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
the
it's a good
original
point.
Game of
Good
Thrones.
point. Yes, good
Because
point.
again, the storytelling for Destiny, some
They got to
people
pull
like,
it
it's
in
never-
game, not a Game of Thrones.
It's never had a good story. It's like the Forsaken story, the Taken King stories were good. They were
And Witch
solid.
Queen.
The opening, yes, Destiny 1 was a mess. And Destiny 2's vanilla after you do the initial campaign was a mess.
Witch
But
Queen
it
is fire.
can't end with, oh, I guess we forgot about the Iron Fleet. It can't be that moment of, because it's such a long thing and people are invested in the end. And if
Yeah, to see
the
it through.
end just crashes, that's the concern that I have, is if you don't land the plane,
Good point.
people like people are not going to hop into Marathon. Like the people who came from Destiny, they're like, okay, cool, I'm out, see ya. But if they land the plane and it's a big plane to land, and if that's what you're going to do, and that's going to be your last major thing, you've got your episodes too, but that's also the question, is what's going to happen in Destiny afterwards. That's the real question, is it can't end like this.
Yeah.
So how do they
Well,
go
it
from
can.
doing
It
this?
can't
Yeah.
end like that. It can't end
Hopefully.
like that.
Well, they
Hopefully
can't.
it
Let
does.
me
Hopefully
say it
not.
like this: they
No.
can.
Not
That's
like
a
this.
possibility. But if they
Not
do,
like
that
this.
that it will be a bad consequence. That is
So
a
I will
better,
say-
more concise way to say it.
I
Yeah.
will say this. I think Bungie learned an important lesson with Lightfall, and I feel like they should have learned this a long time ago with, a million different expansions that didn't land. But I think what their takeaway was that the annual model has never worked for them. They complained about it under Activision, and then they self-imposed it when they were independent because they needed money. And I feel like they are finally in a situation under Sony where maybe there's less pressure. And I think that that's what episodes are about. I think episodes
Okay.
are about, let's make less content, but let's make it more high quality, and let's be willing to not announce. I think that's why we don't know what the next major expansion is, because I do not think it's going to be annual. I think it's going to be 18 months minimum, 2 years more likely. I think they're going to take twice as long to make expansions.
That would
and
be
they're going
good,
to
though,
come
don't you
out-
think?
I think so too, because there is a little bit of like,
We need a reset.
even if a season is good-ish, the fact that I just got done playing Destiny 3 months ago and I'm already kind of sick of the whole like ritual of going and doing strikes and stuff. That grates over time. It's kind of like, we're being inundated with so many MCU TV shows on Disney Plus that it's, who even has time for all of these anymore. And so I think Bungie, I'm hopeful that they learn that lesson and that they are going to, step one, delay the final shape and not release until it's to a quality that they understand. And then going forward, they use longer episodes as a replacement for seasons to make less Destiny content, but make it hit harder. And I do think that that's their vision. I think that that's why they haven't announced what's coming after. And I kind of view that as, let's be a little optimistic here, but I kind of view that as a good thing, because I don't think that Destiny should be annualized, because the results are very clear, which is that you get 1 year where it sucks, and then the next year, the expansion that they actually were working on for 2 years hits. And if that skip the 1 year, that's what I say. Skip the bad one. I don't need the Shadowkeeps. I don't need the Lightfalls. Like, just skip a year and make an expansion that's good when we play it.
Yeah,
I think with the with expansions, they goes without saying they are revenue generators. What blows my mind, and I tweeted this a bit before the show, is that Bungie just don't market their seasons at all, do they? They're like trailer 4 hours before, good to go. Exactly, right? Season 9.
The last
season
two have had a week, luckily, but
hype is like, they can just generate hype and then the season promotes itself. It's like, and I just hope with episodes that they can kind of, I don't know if it's because they were under Activision and Activision just kind of nail when it comes to marketing things, but like I want to see that kind of thing. I want to feel excited going into a season. I know you want to secrets and mysteries, but we've not had any real like live events or community secrets since those seasons. Right?
It goes
but
back...
those are things that bring communities together though, right? Community puzzles and all those kind of things. Corridors of Time, perfect example, but that was the last one we had, really.
They used to
bring everyone together.
Everything. I still remember. I still go back to the E3 Taken King trailer. If you watch that thing just hits, and I'm like, why don't they do that anymore?
No, exactly.
That was Activision, by the way. I can tell you this. Like,
that's good to know.
As a member of the press, dude, Activision was next level, and they were so good at it. You almost feel like you're being manipulated when you're a member of the press corps, because like Destiny 2 is a great example. They're like, all right, Travis, Destiny 2 is coming out, and guess what? You're going to come up to Bellevue. You're going to stay with us in a hotel for a week. We're going to pay for all your meals, and you're just going to be in a room of Destiny content creator. Luke Smith is going to be over your shoulder watching you play Destiny 2 campaign for the first time. You're going to play the entire expansion, and then you're going to get to interview all the devs, and then we'll send you home to write your review. And this was like 2 weeks before the Destiny 2 came out, right? And they used to do that for every expansion, even for seasons and like the PC release and stuff like that. They'd be like, come on down to Bungie HQ. We're going to have you, play your game in our office. And as soon as they went indie, that went away. And now they're just like, here's a code for the game. Here's a code for the game. You get a free copy, but you play it the same time as everyone else when the game's already out. And best of luck to you. And I get it, because it's like they don't have the Activision dollars that they did, but like it was night and day, dude. Like, I'm not even a guy who really likes Activision as a company, but like as a member of the press, ooh, man, does it feel good to be.
It might not have been 45% short if the market was the same.
Well, that always just drove me nuts, because I'm like, dude, they always nail music. They always nailed the feeling of the game. They always nailed the art direction. And the other thing that they always nailed, hype trailers.
Oh, marketing trailers?
Always used to. Oh my. They're still the best. Like, I go back, like I've said, I go back to that Taken King trailer, like that music. And like when I was starting to do content creation, that's one of the things I'm like, dude, this is so hype. Let's go. And now it's just kind of like, hey, one day before, here's a trailer.
Yeah, like the day before, no hype cycle. Yeah, it's much shorter.
The trailers now just show off. They just show off cosmetics and Eververse, don't they? They don't really show the season that much. So.
And even the trailer that comes out the day before, it's usually like PlayStation accidentally leaking it. Like, it's usually the trailers aren't supposed to go out until day of.
I honestly think a lot of that is just a lack of things to show, because that's something that I've noticed is like, as their pipeline has gone down, when you don't have like kernels, breadcrumbs to leave for the community leading up to release, then it makes it really hard to like create a hype pipeline. And like we saw this with Lightfall. Like the press heard nothing from Lightfall, and then like a week before the expansion came out, they showed us like the first 2 missions, and all of us left there going, this expansion's gonna suck. Like all of us, we were like they did a Q&A after, and everyone was depressed during the Q&A, like in the press corps. It was like not a good situation. And so I feel like a lot of that has just been like when your pipeline's non-existent, there's not really a lot you can hype up to, because they had so much they could hype for Forsaken. They could show you the entire campaign and you wouldn't even know about the Dreaming City or any of the stuff going on there. And so I just feel like it's and again, this is maybe another problem that is solved with them getting rid of annualized releases and giving themselves more breathing room to actually create meaningful content. Because I don't know about you guys, maybe I'm an outlier in the community, but I don't need to be on Destiny every day. But when I do log on, I want my experiences to be awesome. And it feels like they got away from that to just make it like this treadmill that they wanted, because players demanded it, by the way. This was a community-led revolt. They said, we want to get rid of you having to do Destiny chores every week. And the community said, no, we want to live in this game. We want to, be in here every day give us things to grind, Bungie.
We want bounties back.
Fine. Yeah, they said fine. They gave it all back. And I just think that was a wrong decision. This is sort of like the dark side of listening to community feedback, is sometimes the community is dead wrong. I see this a lot in Dungeons and Dragons, because Wizards of the Coast stands for nothing as a company, and they make all of their decisions based on what the community wants, even when the community has really dumb ideas.
Right.
Like, we want our druids to be able to shapeshift into any creature and any stat block, and then they go, we think that's imbalanced, and the community goes, well, we like it, and then they completely reverse that decision. And Bungie does that all the time, whether it's the random rolls or sunsetting weapons, or you can pick out of a hat something that Bungie has said, we believe in this, we think this is the right thing, and then as soon as the community complained about it, they were like, we're done believing in that now. And it's just a crazy way to run your game.
Can you imagine if they would have stuck to their guns on sunsetting? Now, granted, the execution, we all know that was poor. That's a thing. Yeah. But if the execution would have been a little bit better, where we would be now, with just the fact that cycling weapons in and out, you could have a little bit of power creep because the weapon would go away. The guy who even said was like, hey, we're going to make badass weapons. Not even with him anymore. It was John Wisniewski. One of those two. Two guys went together to a different studio, I think. But it was all that idea of, what do we get to look forward to? Even
he's like, we're going to make awesome things at a different company. Come and hang out with us over there.
Yeah, it has been. This is probably my year of the least amount of Destiny that I've played. I don't know about you guys, depending on what you've been up to, but this does feel like some of the lowest. Now, granted, it's been other releases and other things of that nature, but it's also, I'm, what am I, rank 117, 120? That's low for me in a season, and I haven't been streaming as much, trying to do other things, and experimenting with variety has not been a bad year. And obviously seeing this writing on the wall now, it's not a horrible idea, but it's also the idea of, what is a 7-month season going to be like if I'm kind of at a point where we know the holiday event's going to kind of be there for the Dawning. We don't actually even have the...
Well, we know what that's going to be like, don't we?
Oh,
maybe
we know exactly.
Maybe that's okay. Like, a game developer I really respect is the people who make Final Fantasy 14, because every time the community runs out of content to play, the game director goes, yeah, go play other stuff. We'll make some more content later, and then you can come back.
Yeah.
Bungie's directly said that as well, or the community managers have directly said that.
They have said that as well, but they've also said, as a principle, we want players in our game less. And then they've reversed that decision and say, well, now engagement is the only thing we care about. And so we're going to create a bunch of activities that get you to log on every week. And the fact that I think engagement is the enemy of good game development and game design cycles. Cause that's just, if you're trying to keep people on the treadmill constantly, either your team and your resources have to be so astronomically big that you can actually do that model, or you have to give some breathing room for creators for artists to make their art. You can't just...
That's why I was actually intrigued about episodes, because it sounded like 6 weeks. You would have one chunk of content. You could probably play it in, I don't know, the first week or so, and then you could have 5 weeks off, but you would get a chunk to digest, because we joked about it before Season of the Witch, which we had a pretty good time with this season. The story was kind of cool, but we all joked before the season started, and I don't know which one of you guys I've joked with it about, we knew it was going to take 7 weeks to see Savathun, and sure enough, it took 7 weeks, and then that was like that over. And then when we read the lore in the actual lore book, we're like, we could have had twice the cutscene. That would have been even cooler if we would have actually seen it all on screen. And the fact that we got half of it 7 weeks later, and it's like, go do all these little chores and things like that to finally build up. I mean, there was a decent story bit behind it, but you could have worked on, people could have grinded that out in a week and then just seen it. And then maybe they want to have people experience those things at the same time. But all it has been just stretched. And even they said, oh, we're going to get creative with the seasons, which, okay, you have a little flirtation with a roguelike last season. Not enough, but it was just, hey, can this idea maybe work? This is our beta test. This one, we got a little bit of a deck builder. Not really. Here's the cards, but they don't really do that much. You just get a random buff in different encounters. These are different ideas, but they're not fleshed out to be anything that really matters. And
they're not impactful.
Yeah, they're not anything that long-term feels like, hey, this is a really cool new season activity. And then also it's like, we did get rid of the grid. Unfortunately, it just has taken different shapes. It's not really gone. Grid. It's a grid without a grid. The grid of cards is actually a grid.
Is so repetitive. Like when you think back to earlier seasons, like the activities would be bespoke, the weapons and armors would be bespoke for that. It'd all be unique for that kind of season, that piece. But now it's just like the same canvas. We've had Battlegrounds 3 seasons in a row and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, I mean, like if that's how the players feel to consume, I mean, how's that feel to put together for devs? Like
a lot of those old seasons weren't really that unique compared to new seasons, or it's like at the time it seemed unique because those types of activities haven't been done. But like the first 3 seasons, they were glorified public events. The first 6 seasons,
season of the Unworthy, we titled it that.
Well, I mean, like even
bad.
Yeah, but like Black Armory, right? Like I see people say like, "Oh, we want the forges back all the time." Like, no, you don't. That shit was boring. Like, it's like it was at the time it was like a little bit more novel and we were excited and stuff. But like that, no, not at all. And I hope that episodes fix that with because I think the hardest part about seasons, at least in my opinion, you see this with chemistry too, like starting up and starting new projects. The hardest part's always the transitions. And with seasons, it's got to be the same too, like switching aesthetics, switching, your mindset. And so like, surely it's easier for someone to make one cutscene for a single episode than, because you don't have to switch like models or anything. But if you're switching seasons more times a year, you got to model a giant fish for this season. You got to model a giant knight for this season, and they're switching back and forth. And that's probably why half of everything's in lore books. So it's got to be, I've got to imagine it's got to be easier if you're switching gears fewer times between aesthetics and enemy race types that you're fighting with and all of this stuff. You get to keep the vibe the same. So
Rosie in chat said it pretty well. After 8 years, it's all the same. And I think that's the other thing too, is we are all getting to that point where we have been playing this game against the same enemies. We all want different enemies, but we all really just need a clean slate. Whether
you need a reset.
Yeah, we do need a
hard reset. Put a 3 at the end of the game.
Right.
I mean, it would be.
I mean, you can market that well. If you're
going to everyone's point, this is the other thing is like since they've been focused on engagement, there's the conflation between engagement and revenue because a lot of times they're like, hey, they're gonna go buy all these cosmetics and stuff, and that's why they want to keep you in the game.
There we go. That's what I was about to say.
It's just one of those things that I think they can just take some time because if you have this is a creative thing too, right? Mm-hmm. This is a creative activity, and as someone who's a musician and teaches musicians and stuff like that. I had someone said, they made a pizza analogy and they said, well, what if we had 2 seasons a year? It's just you're taking a pizza and instead of cutting it in 4, you're cutting it into 2. And I'm like, no, what if instead you took more time to make a foundation, have more dough, and then instead you can make that dough bigger? The longer you spend with a creative activity, generally a lot of times that's where better ideas come from. That's where you get to stretch. That's where it goes to the over delivery and you be careful of delivering patterns. Sometimes taking more time to let something bubble and ferment and go over and get better will lead to more ideas in it. But if you're constantly saying we can't over deliver, that makes a paradigm naturally of, okay, well, we can't go over and above. That means you're just going to get everything that's middling and not performing and
Well,
underperforming.
and it's temporary in the game, so it's like
Right.
it's got to be hard for developers to make something that
It's funny.
is going to be gone
I-
in 3, 6,
Yeah.
9 months, no matter what you do.
Ironically, the one thing that Destiny could do as a game that would keep people engaged for longer with the least amount of content having to be created is investing in their multiplayer, which is the exact
Oh, you
opposite of what-
you don't say.
It's so crazy. It's so and
Wow,
I,
that's
honestly,
wild.
I think that their
They want more
answer might
Gambit.
be, what are you supposed to do in between these long episodes that we're planning? What
Wow,
do
it
you
is
Play
engaging
Marathon.
PvP community.
I think their answer
Wow.
is going to be Marathon. actually.
Marathon.
Yeah,
I
think
would
that
not
is
be
their answer.
surprised if, because Marathon's probably, they already said it's going to have seasons too. I talked about this before. I think they're going to stagger them. Like it only makes sense to stagger them, right? Like you're not going to have all of your games compete with each other. So you're going to be like, this month is Destiny month, or this, third quarter is Destiny quarter. This quarter is Marathon quarter, and bounce it around like that. It's kind of the smart thing to do. It'll probably get annoying though.
No, I
Yeah.
wanted to double
What
up
if
on
you're
what
not
Mega-
into one of those games? Because I
Yeah.
don't think they have a ton of overlap in their audience. We'll see though.
Yeah, I wanted to double up on what man was saying. It's a perfect analogy. I think that's what's happening here. You talked about the pizza analogy and the investment in time. From a creative standpoint, you are correct. That gives us the quality product. That gives us the thing that, we had this great meal. All right, we good. We can take a break because we fine, right? It was okay to step away at that point during like the Taken King era and all that stuff. You had that big media expansion. The problem is I feel it's in direct conflict with their business model. They want you in here all the time so that they can monetize you. And we always talk about they've had one of the most egregious monetization and multiple monetization paths in the game. There's a reason. If the community keeps saying, yo, bro, this is too much. Why are you locking the shader with these other things? And why can't I get this separate? Why you got the battle pass I can pay to level up each item? Like they've got all these different methods. And to me, there's a reason. It's either A, you live in kind of that check to check energy where maybe you're not as profitable as we think, because there's a reason why they won't back off. It's like we always used to say, Everburst never gets a nerf.
Oh,
Like,
no,
she doesn't
Eververse
get
never
nerfed.
gets a nerf. And I mean, I saw a tweet about Steam when it just lists all the different things you can buy. It's like, it all adds up to $540 to get started in the game. It's $200. Nothing.
Yeah.
They've never consolidated. The fact that
They've
there's a Forsaken pack and
Forsaken-
Shadowkeep, those two are
Still,
so
full price.
Why?
I have to disagree though. The community just gave Eververse a 45% nerf actually. So
I mean, they know what people do spend their money on. Like, I think
There are whole
wasn't it like the
sec-
Monarch bundle? Didn't like 130,000 people buy that last time? And that's
There
like
are whole
1.4 million
groups
for a
of
shader.
people-
Like,
there are whole groups of people. This is the thing that Dado says in all of his videos is there are groups, and this doesn't just happen in the gaming industry, it happens everywhere. There are whole segments of people who do market research to figure out how much it costs to extract the maximum amount of value out of the minimal viable product. So you're right. This is exactly one of those things. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm just going back to some other stuff. Like I was not a fan of them charging the dungeon passes, and I'm still not a fan of it because they should just be part of the seasons. But I was okay at the time. And I think this is one of those points where Bungie takes feedback and they interpret it incorrectly. I was totally cool with them doing it for the 30th anniversary. It's like, okay, you're paying for something extra. It's the Season of the Lost. Here's an extra thing. But I think that they interpreted it as, you get to pay for this dungeon, this Grasp of Avarice dungeon. This is this thing you need to do. And they interpret it as, oh, that means we can charge this separately and have a buffet, a smorgasbord of stuff, and then we can just start charging people. And it's like, no, just charge more for the seasons, man. And just put it in the season, and then there's more.
They did that
content.
too.
now they do both.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Well, that's always been Bungie's strategy, though, is to do
Right,
all of
exactly.
the models. And I just think it seems like maybe they're moving away from that, or that was the strategy, because I think they realized you can't really keep people engaged if they fall out of love with your game because you're putting out subpar products. And I don't think that anything displayed that more clearly than Lightfall, because whatever money you make on Lightfall, you will lose long term when it causes people to stop playing your game and streamers to leave your game and all the bad stuff that's happened. So I'm hopeful that episodes and them not announcing the next expansion is them signaling to the community, hey, look, there might be less Destiny in the future, but that's an investment we're making in the game and in keeping you guys around long term and all that stuff. And I think that would be great, but it's not the world we live in right now. And I think players have every right to be pissed at the monetization model and the cadence of content and the quality of content and all the things, because you can only get by on having tight gunplay for so long.
Right.
And I think after 9 years, there's a lot of people who are just like, look, I can get this elsewhere, man. I don't need to be playing this game anymore. There's not only 100 other great games that came out this year, but a lot of them are live service games where you and your friends can hop on and play them for 100 hours. So they just have competition now. They don't live in the world where after Destiny vanilla launches, they can screw up for a year because there's no one really else to like check them, right? They don't live in that world anymore. And this is a world where if you don't come to play, you end up, Anthem. You get
part
Anthem.
of it too is like I don't want to use animosity. We're grieving. Like we're literally grieving for the game that we were like, oh, it's going to be this. It's going to be this. It's going to be this. And we're all, I think, as a community, I think this is why the sentiment is negative right now, other than, of course, all the negative things that happen. And of course, the people who've been laid off. But we're all grieving because we're all like, man, this game has had so many great things. It's had so many good things, but we've always been waiting for it to reach its final form. And I know, right? But
like
it never quite did. And that's the thing that I think for me, I'm disappointed. It doesn't seem like it's, and of course I want to be optimistic, but it's hard to be optimistic when you release the workforce and you've seen like there's been these management issues. So I hope they nail it. I hope that it's a banger. But you're exactly right, Travis, is like they've been leaning on, hey, it feels good to play. And now you can go play other games, and like there are so many other avenues. You can get what you wanted out of Destiny, but from other games and new content and fresh content.
I honestly think an 8 is the highest I'm ever going to score a Destiny expansion, and that destroys me. Because I'm like Cog, right? Like I'm one of those people who've always wanted to be proven right in this regard, that like my faith was rewarded. I trusted that Bungie would come through and eventually they'd figure this thing out. And it sounds like instead they're kind of getting left in the dust when it comes to live service, and they're kind of divesting from the project and looking at other stuff, which, I'm a big fan of new projects and stuff like that. Destiny doesn't need to be the only game I play. I probably play less Destiny than the rest of my co-hosts here. Actually, Cog has been pretty light these days, but typically though, in the past, I've been like the guy who plays the least. And it's a bummer to think that they're never going to fulfill that potential that we all so clearly saw. Like anybody who's played Destiny for like 5 minutes and sees the potential, but it doesn't look like
9 years of potential. I think that's one of the biggest things is you could probably have that as a subtitle in every scene. Like the season of potential is what we always hope. There's this thing that they could do, and we speculate about what it could be every season, every expansion. Oh, could they do this? Could they do this? Would they do this with the story? Is this going to be a villain? Are we going to get a new subclass? Are we going to get a new set of enemies with final shape or something? And we get a variation on another skin of another color of all the same stuff. And the potential, the hope and potential of seeing something exciting out of Destiny at this point is low. So when you go into final shape with low pre-order numbers, people canceling their pre-order due to the news or whatever, depending on how hardcore you are, depending on which of the content creators you follow, you hearing about all this stuff. I mean, if you look at the videos from Cross and Datto and Fallout and anybody else who's big enough to reach a pretty sizable audience, when you see hundreds of thousands of views on those videos, that's a lot of people getting news that even if they're not in the Twitterverse or reading the TWABs, if they do follow a creator to get guides or updates or news or anything, they're hearing about this too. So now you've got an even bigger set of people that are either not going to be happy, be worried, be unsure. So any financial predictions you had that were hoping Final Shape was going to be good, they're just going down as time progresses. Then you have a 7-month season that might have some people, and then you'll have the attrition when people get bored during doing that. 2024 is going to have some new games that come out. Then when you get around to June, depending on when this lands, that is E3 time. Depending on when they time this thing, you're going to have announcements of other stuff and all that going on.
Well, there is no E3, but
there is no E3 anymore.
Actually,
right?
You know what you mean.
You know what I mean. Summer Games Fest, IGN Summer of Gaming. Any other names I'm missing here?
But it's a great time to release games because nobody releases games those 2 weeks of E3.
That is true.
Happened one time, but
That is true.
it's kind of a. But here's my thing: is I actually don't think it matters if people stop playing the game completely, because if you build it, they will come. Right? And there was a time where nobody was playing Destiny 1. There's times where people have, Curse of Osiris and said, peace, I'm out. And they come back if you release good content. And so
If you
Yeah.
build
I think
it.
If you build it.
yeah, if you build it, exactly. But I think that the biggest risk they have is not taking that time to actually create something that's worth coming back for, and then
Right.
the game eventually just sort of like suffering a death by 1,000 cuts, which is kind of what has happened to
Yes.
Destiny recently. It's
Mhm.
it's at like 800 cuts at this point, and it's just, there's not going to be one thing that kills it.
Mhm.
It's going to be a whole bunch of like slow, steady kind of just downturn. I think they need a break, and I don't care if there's a 7-month season of Destiny, because I'll be gone for 17 months if the
Yeah, but I don't know if they can
expansion you
survive
release
that, bruh.
afterward.
That's
They
you.
don't-
I don't know if they could survive that.
Oh,
That
okay, yeah.
engagement loss, that is
Well,
tremendous.
that-
and
that's
they
a-
already
that's
teetering downward now.
But do they
Like-
need the engagement to stay profitable as a business? I think that is a them company question, but I can tell you from a player's perspective, it
Mhm.
shouldn't really matter if they're gone for 12 months, if they have a 12-month season, and then eventually, because if they get there and they release that game and they put everything they have into it, I believe Bungie is a talented enough studio, even though they're 8% less talented now. I still think they're talented enough to blow us away. And it's really just a matter of
hope
them being able to do that. But those questions, to your point, Cog, about like, how do they stay profitable? What about the engagement over time? That is a Bungie problem. And,
Right.
I have no obligation
It's
to solve
our
that.
problem, because if they don't exist if they go away and they cease to exist and they trend
I would
downwards.
rather them not exist gracefully than to continue to exist and become something that I don't want to be a part
fair
of.
enough.
Right?
Fair
It's
enough.
like,
And so
Sony
it
has enough money.
if
Hopefully,
their answer is other games, Cog, that they're going to launch Marathon and that's going to solve their financial issues while they reinvest in Destiny and give it a second wind, that's great. But that's a Bungie problem to solve. I think as an advocate for the game and from the
Mhm.
perspective of gamers, I can't stand by and say, yeah, you should totally keep chugging out this content. Even
No, I'm
though
not. I agree with you there. I'm not talking about that. My issue is, and again, this is what I want to ask early to you, was with the actual nature of the delay, because they still haven't officially come out, right, and said that final shape. We know from Bloomberg Report, Jay Schreier, his sources are on fire. We know this most likely is to be true, but they themselves have not come out. So I guess my question to you is more the mindset for them for the delay. We hear the 45% overshooting with the target, but do they internally say, hey, what we see is not good enough? What is the legit reasoning behind? That's what I want to know, and they haven't gotten in front of that yet.
It's definitely not good enough. I can tell you, like, there's some delays where the reason is so obvious, and I think just based on all the reports we've seen and my conversations with people that were laid off this week, like, it's just like they weren't given enough time to do this. They knew that when they half-baked Lightfall last year, right? And like the fact that they have been having to, things have not been going according to plan, and they've had to patch things, and these are all hurdles to development. And I honestly think that they just need a break to be creative, do what artists do best, and come out with something that's going to blow us away. And I
Right.
think, yeah, maybe they'll make less money in the interim, but I think
that's
it's
fine.
an
I'm good with
investment,
that.
right? Because if Destiny, if the final shape comes out and it's a 10 out of 10, it's really not going to matter how
Yeah, no,
badly
I'm
their
completely good with
Q4
that.
was,
If that's
you
the
know?
reason,
So,
that was my whole point. If the reason is if it's legitimately to make a quality product and take the necessary time so that we don't have a Lightfall situation, 100%. Yeah,
I think it has to be. I can't even think of another reason that they would delay it, because it's not in their interest to delay it, right? Delay is always the last option if you're a development studio. The only reason you do it is because you think that that you're not going to be successful putting it out when you do, and that your teams need more time.
Right.
And
There
I,
was there was
yeah.
some talk about potentially, because the business year starts in April 1st, in that PlayStation, again, I don't know this. I am not in the industry proper. There was some talk about the fact that if they released it in February, it would be the 2023 year. And when they're doing their investor stakeholder calls,
Yeah, I heard that.
instead, theoretically, maybe they push it out there because it is going to be a larger expansion. Maybe they would see a return. Sony would see a return on
That's
investment.
better for Sony.
And it
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
better for Sony and their investors. Again, I don't know. It's
I
just
did hear
things
that.
that I have heard. And again,
Even if
I'd
that were-
be interested.
yeah. even if that were the reason, I still think it benefits both the players and Bungie as a studio.
agreed.
To have more time to work on it. And so, like, if that's your reasoning, fine. My problem would be if they forced it to come out in April because it's got to hit that first quarter of
Right.
Sony's
It's
calendar.
June
That's
now.
when people.
Right.
Or June, yeah. But if that was the reason to hit like a benchmark, I always think that's the wrong reason to do it. But
I agree.
I honestly just think you could look at this delay and be pessimistic and say that, but if you look at the other announcements that they've made, whether it's episodes or not announcing a new expansion before this one comes out, I think that there's a lot of hints to indicate that they're thinking differently about this, and they're thinking, look, we're seeing the numbers go down, and we already know the reason why. Because we're pumping out content faster than is healthy, and we can see it in the reactions from our players. Let's just take a little bit more time. And that's the old school method of doing things. Like if you take more time on it and it's better, you will be better in the long term, even if it's less profitable right now. And I'm hoping that that's the way
that's what I'm hoping too.
I don't think a delay's ever been bad for Bungie. Like when they've delayed stuff,
I agree.
It's generally come out good. Like we know how the saying goes: delay games are eventually good, and a rush game is forever bad. We know how that goes, and that's true.
Probably
Bungie.
hates that quote exists.
But it's true. for them.
And Cyberpunk now is like
Also not true
cruising with their new piece of content. I don't know what it is, but it's like
Phantom
a new
Liberty.
expansion.
Insane.
Yeah, and I've heard it's
game of the
great.
year if it launched like
Trust me,
that.
it would be a lot easier to review games if it were true that a bad game is always bad, because now it's just not true. Dude, I reviewed Fortnite, and that game wasn't even a battle royale.
No,
when
it wasn't. I
started.
remember that.
Yeah,
It was
it wasn't.
FTW. Yeah.
Crazy.
What did
Big
you
world.
give Fortnite, Travis?
I think I gave it a 7, and then and then I was like, oh, cool, it's like a nice little base building game. And then like I went away for like a month and a half, and then somebody was like, dude, have you played that game Fortnite? I was like, yeah, that thing's all right. And they were like, oh my god. And then they showed me the game, and I went, what is this? This is not the game I
This is
reviewed
not
at
the game I
all. What the
reviewed.
hell?
That is not the
Yeah.
game.
Very weird
Look
situation.
at that PUBG's homework.
Well, it's like, I mean, we've watched
did.
we've watched games. Starfield got a year delay, so I think at this point the question would be, one is, when you talk about the delays, how long can they financially survive, or ask Sony to be like, we need this to be good. If you want our studio to be successful for you as Sony, how long do you need? Do you need 4 months? Do you need 5 months? Do you need 9 months? And as you said, Travis, like when you put out that 9 out of 10 game, people notice. If you say, hey, the newest Destiny expansion is 9 out of 10. Now, if you're doing all that and you take time to put it together, the other thing that I feel like you need to do to build the trust back as well between some of those things, you need to make the barrier to entry for any new players that see this 9 out of 10 be like, hey, how can I get into Destiny? Try and make some of the 14 pop-up screens, the 20 different expansions you got to buy, make the barrier to entry as a new player not awful and terrible, and that's something that has been screamed at them forever. But if you can take 6, 7, 8, 9 months, if they're allowed, depending on who you are, depends on how much clout you have to ask for that. You don't hear from Remedy for a very long time at all, and then we get Alan Wake 2, and it's flirting with Game of the Year talks. I don't know where it's going to land on mine. It's on a short list, though, because that game is special, but it also takes a creative vision to be able to drive that game, but it also takes the financial consideration to say, make what you want to make, and take the time to make this crazy, bizarre, absolutely ridiculous adventure. The We Sing chapter, which you'll like, Skarrow, I think you got through that. I'm going, how is this in a game?
It's so good. So good.
And that's
so
the
good.
kind of stuff.
I heard the musical in that episode. The
that's-
musical
that's it,
mission is
yeah.
like the banger.
God, that was crazy.
It's crazy. It blew me away.
Yeah,
But that's kind of my worry with Final Shape, because like a Destiny expansion is so much more than just like activities piled on top of whatever, like it starts at the foundation, and if it's not good, can you really fix enough stuff in 4 months to really correct that ship? And I just released a video about this like a couple hours
I was
ago,
watching
but
it. Yeah.
if you sit down and like, if I'm like, okay, why did I like Witch Queen better than Beyond Light? Like, it's really hard for me to articulate that. Like, there are certain things I can point to, but there's definitely certain things that I liked better in Beyond Light than Witch Queen. It's like a lot of how good a Destiny expansion is like just the overall experience, the vibe, the community sentiment. Like, a lot of things play into it, and a lot of that takes a lot more than 4 months, I imagine, to set up and get going.
Agreed.
And if the community's already pissed off, then it's just, I don't know. It's like I just don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I have no idea. But it worries me because if it's not great, you don't have time to completely start over and scrap it.
Yeah,
And
it's
how much
like
can you?
Like,
How much frosting can you put on a bad?
Yeah.
How much
Yeah.
frosting can you put on a bad cake to make it how much frosting can you put on an okay cake to make it a banger cake? You know?
Well,
It's,
so I've talked to developers about this too, and sometimes like the problem with an expansion isn't that it's not good, it's that it just doesn't go far enough, right? And so maybe the campaign is good, but there's no secrets and there's no
sure.
sometimes that extra couple months of polish at the end where you're like throwing things in that have nothing to do with anything are like all the best parts. Like
Yes.
Rockstar is a great example of a developer I've talked to extensively about this because they put stuff in their games that if you scoped it out at any other studio, they would say, you're insane. We're never going to spend time doing this. In Grand Theft Auto 5, you can get on a bus and take a full tour of Los Santos with full dialogue. Like the person will just give you a full tour, everything. They put that in the game at the end of the development cycle and like the mini games, some of the mini games that are there, just because they were like, look, we have all the money in the world. We don't need to rush this. And I feel like that sometimes that layer on top, right? Like the secrets you can find in Forsaken.
Over delivery.
It really over delivery.
Yeah, well, I mean, is an ocean really an ocean if it's only 1 inch deep? You know. You got some
I really think that there's a huge potential, and developers know best, right? And there's a luckily a great balance of power that happens in studios where accountants and business people go, this game needs to come out this day, and then developers and artists say, well, actually, we need more time. And I think if you let developers have their go of it, they would never release a game because they would all the time.
Yeah, true.
If you let accountants do it, then you would have one game come out every quarter and they would all be bad. And so there is sort of like an equilibrium that I think we're lucky to have in the industry. But I tend to be on the side of like developers really do know, and especially some of them use internal reviewers, which are people like me who write reviews for their games and then give it just to Bungie and say, look, if I were working for IGN or GameSpot, this is what I'd give it. And
is this a hint? Have you done that for Final Shape?
I have not done it for any games because I write my reviews in daylight, but the people who tend to do it are people who used to write for IGN and GameSpot and they retired and then they go and they work in the private sector, right? Or they get canceled, like something happens and they can't like write reviews publicly. And so then they'll go and work for one of these companies that sell their services of like, hey, we'll review your game internally. And we have like a roster of people who know what they're talking about. One of the really popular ones is called Hit Detector, which is hit detection, if you know what that is in gaming, but also because are they hits or not? Get it? It's fun.
Is it hit?
Yeah. And is one of the companies, and they like those are really useful because they will get like full unbiased feedback from a third party company about like
the one
hey,
who did like Redfall
right.
failed at their job, and the one who did Starfield actually kind of nailed at the job. That was so weird.
Which is weird because I have a friend who works at Microsoft and he told me the internal review of Starfield while I was playing it before it was out, and he was like, yeah, we have 82 Metacritic as like our projection, and I laughed at him. I was like, there's no way, like this game's gonna be like a 75. And then he was like right on the money. It was like 82 exactly. And I was like, all right, it shows what I know. I guess I'm on the low end. But
I think to your point, Travis, earlier about the the accountants, versus the creatives, and I do agree. I'm very pro developer. They know best. Obviously, we have to respect the business and stuff does have to come out at some point. I guess the fear, and I think why a lot of sentiment is negative, basic stuff that Mano was saying is that like when you hear that the teams were not listened to, and that the people who are making the bad decisions are still in place is the concern. That's why it's like, I see what Skarrow's saying with the 4 months, is it enough if people who've been blocking you all this time, the hope is that they have reached the low that they are now, that something has to change, that they cannot continue to produce in the way that they've produced it because the community trust is now at its all-time low. And if they don't get it together, that's the first time. Because Bungie to me is always that kid who's like talented but kind of coasts. And then when it hits the floor and it's time for that final exam, all right, cool, they come through, right? And then after they pass the exam, all right, next semester we can coast a little bit again. Like it's always this thing with them, right? But this is the first time where people go, Man, I don't know, because of the way this situation was handled and the talent that was let go and the people who are definitely making these decisions not penalized. They're still there. That's the fear.
But it's
That's
also like
frustrating,
what? How
too.
do you penalize if Pete Parsons gets let go? He gets a $5 billion severance package, and
Golden
he's
parachute.
fine. Like you don't penalize these people. You know what I mean? Like,
do
oh,
get them out of
boo-hoo,
the
he
way,
never
though.
has to work another day in his life. Oh,
Well,
like,
it goes to that crony capitalism that we kind of started off the show with is, there's the Milton Friedman. I think it's Milton Friedman who says, he who bears the risk gets the reward. Well, if you bear the whole problem is that the people who are risking things and saying, we're going to make this decision and these are the things that are going to happen, we're going to bear the risk. They're not the ones suffering the consequences. It's the other people who said, okay, we'll follow your direction. And that's the problem. But at the same time,
Yep.
Pete Parsons isn't going to fire himself. That's the real problem, is at the end of the day, manager's not going to be like, I will follow my sword, everybody. Sorry, everybody. Oh, I'm out. It just doesn't happen because they have to protect themselves and they want to protect, they would probably say in their defense, they're protecting that institutional knowledge. So it's how do you balance that?
Well,
Because there's
you
definitely
can-
been some differences, but I keep going back to the Nintendo CEO when
Yeah, remember when
he took the pay cut.
Took the
And I'm
pay
like,
cut.
dude, and everyone, like
company.
literally everyone was like, let's do this. And we're going to get on board and we're going to reload. It's that same Michael Salvatore quote that he had said, let's all get together, reload. And now we have the Switch. And now we have all the stuff that's happening in Nintendo. And even though the Switch is not like a super amazing piece of hardware, it's still the best. I would argue again, I don't know, but I know that Nintendo is not in the place it was after
Wii U.
what was it
Wii
called? The
U.
Wii 2, I think. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Wii U.
Wii
Yeah,
U.
Wii U. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I just think about that is like Pete Parsons, what he should have said is, guys, we're not, like, his tweet should have been, we had to let some people go today. I am doing this. Management is taking this pay cut. These are the things that we are taking responsible for, because that would have been such a tonal shift for the community, for those people who potentially got let go, because at the end of the day, he's not saying anything. And he's just saying, oh, we let these people go. And that's really my concern is, to your point, Cog, is the people who are risking things are not bearing the consequences. And that's the problem.
Well,
Or at
I
least
think
course
that-
correct. That's
Yes,
that's my
correct,
Yeah,
yeah.
at this point, right? If
I think they do get rewarded for the risk, and they take the risk when they start the company, right? Like Pete
Yes,
Parsons
exactly.
took all the risk early, but now he's an acquired company. He has very little risk because the worst thing that could happen to him is his bosses,
Right.
aka the shareholders or Sony,
Exactly.
could say, "Hey, we need you to step aside and you get a golden parachute." And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? Like if Pete Parsons got fired, he should get rewarded for the fact that he's created
started the
the company.
company.
And so yeah, like it was his baby, and he did
That
take
was
all
a
the risk early
Agreed.
on. Like he took all the risk. He could have screwed up his own, finances in the process. So I think that is working. The problem is like what happens when you succeed and you now are starting to be somebody who's getting in the way of what your company is trying to do.
exactly.
And that does
Yeah.
happen, like right, like it
Agreed.
happened with Bobby Kotick, and he's essentially getting fired because he got the end game, the worst case scenario for when you start a company and it's wildly successful, which is that somebody pays you to go away. But yeah, I have a problem with like, to me, there's a right time to leave a company, and an acquisition's a great time to do it. I think if you're not involved in the creative process.
Pete Parsons did not he was not part of the founding of Bungie. He
yes,
didn't join
correct,
until
Oh, fair.
2002.
Good point.
But
Wasn't
it's like
Marty O'Donnell one of the founders?
Did you
I
see
don't know.
Marty?
He was on the
That guy-
board for
Did
sure.
y'all see
Marty,
Marty?
Marty wanted to do things.
Yeah.
I know.
he's real
Marty's a
spicy.
whole nother bag of cats and
He's
stuff
like,
that.
you guys
He's like, I
remember
got
that?
receipts
We could do another episode just for Marty. I think.
just for Marty right now. We can do an
Yeah.
episode.
Jeez.
Yeah, Marty is a whole separate conversation.
Yeah, that's a different thing. But more just, who were the founders? Did you look that up, Skarrow? I can't even remember.
I can
remember.
look up that guy, that Jones guy or whatever, right?
Oh yeah. Josh
yeah,
Jones. Was it
Josh
Josh
Jones.
Jones?
Jason Jones and Alex
Jason
Serafino.
Jones.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
1991. God dang.
Apparently, I
Bungie's
can
old.
just Google faster than you guys.
Yeah, I think Pete Parsons is known for like seeing through Bungie during its like most profitable time. It was like right post. I think he was chief operating officer right before Halo Combat Evolved, and then became the CEO immediately after. So like he was in charge during like all of Bungie's wild successes. So I think he definitely takes some credit. He definitely had risk involved.
He definitely had
in
risk with
game
it.
and
To
that
your
sort of
to your
stuff.
point,
Yeah.
Travis. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was the point that Skarrow was saying is, you get the golden parachute. And I think it goes to exactly what you were saying is if you are starting to get in the way of the progress of the game, like that's when you need to move on. And I think you're right on the money with that. Right on the money.
And I think the great thing about everything, like if you're depressed about Destiny right now, and I think you probably have a lot of reason to be depressed, you shouldn't be depressed about the games industry, because the great news is like every time one company dies, all the talented people, they something rises in its place, and I have no doubt that the people who've been laid off this year are going to create companies that replace Bungie and their
100%.
former role as a AAA independent studio. I think there's going to be some it'll take a while. It'll probably be 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years from now, there's going to be like a renaissance of all these companies that started as a result of this year of layoffs and stuff like that. And they're probably going to go on to put their old companies out of business, because that's the circle of life.
The circle of life. Oh, those are my balls. That's what I've been saying, baby.
Yeah, the young devour the old, and that is a beautiful part of capitalism, I think.
I'm with you.
That's why I work for startups.
Mm-hmm. E.
Oh, I've been letting you guys all cook. I've been trying to think of anything we might not have covered so far. Between we had the layoffs, we had Michael Salvatore, we got more composers, the artists to the left, we had the news about Marathon, and that seems to tweets have been taken down, so I don't want to spend too much time on that in case that was requested to be taken down. But whatever news you've got about a game that's in alpha stages, I love how that thing was supposedly slipped to 2025 when that's when I didn't expect to see it any sooner than that. It's just weird that was listed that way.
I don't know. I always thought it was 2024 because, Matter we thought was in 2025. That's what Bungie directly said like 3 years ago. But
I heard it was like I heard Matters
unofficially,
unofficially, but
canceled.
that was always how I framed Marathon. Because when we thought Matter was going to exist, there's no way they would release 2 new IPs in the same year. That'd be ridiculous. And so,
either way, they wanted more than one IP by 2025. But I think Matter was the whimsical kind of game they referenced, I think.
Yeah, I remember something about that. So you've got the Marathon stuff, poor choices in quotes. You've got the non-TWAB. They actually said there wasn't a TWAB. Everybody was just waiting to see if that was going to happen today. I'm glad it didn't, because I don't want to see anybody have to write that. I mean, granted, the Destiny 2 development team is just a generic signature of who knows who wrote that thing and put it together.
HR manager, whoever that is, for sure. I have zero doubt in my mind. I could you point me to a directory in that building, I'll walk right to the person who wrote that.
If Matt got cancelled, what happened to the 100 million investment from NetEase then?
So
is that Gummy Bear or whatever Gummy Bear is I keep hearing about?
My understanding about that investment, and maybe someone has more insight, but that was not earmarked for necessarily a certain game.
That would just be a vested interest like they're doing in everything else. Is that all they're really doing? Because NetEase is doing that lots of places.
I don't think you even really can invest in games. You either invest in a studio or you pay to have like rights, like publishing rights or something for specific games. But they wouldn't be buying shares in an undeveloped game.
Fair enough.
Well, as it has been about 2 hours. Been a wonderful chat with you, gentlemen. Chat, you guys have been fire. This is one of our biggest shows. So if you guys do enjoy the show, share it with friends. Drop a like. Follow all of these amazing people. I dropped all of their links in chat and everything, and you'll see them in the description for both YouTube and audio and stuff like that. But is there anything you guys just like kind of final thoughts about, whether it's the situation, whether it's something we haven't talked about, something that's on the tip of the tongue that we may have like glanced over? I just kind of want to go around and let everybody have a chance to say whatever else your final topic might be. And I know, Jarv, you've been pretty patient tonight, so I kind of want to go to you first. Just what is anything else that you want to say about this whole situation? Thoughts on the future? Where are you at?
I mean, I've been made redundant 3 times myself in my life, so I know exactly the kind of feelings going on with the individuals involved, but also the families that are involved as well. It's more than just 100 people. There's 100 families and households that have got a bit of a tough time right now. So just my heartfelt gratitude for what they've all done for us, for Destiny in the time that they've been there. And I wish them all the best for their future endeavors and they land on their feet. And like Trav said, in 4 or 5 years, hopefully we see some absolutely banger studios popping up. And I look forward to seeing what their next projects are going to be and actually engaging with them when they become a reality. That's my piece on it, really. And also, whilst this has only been 2 hours long, I've aged a year. It's been good fun.
Oh, I'm sorry it was so terrible for you. I'm sorry this was such a bad experience.
That's a birthday joke, E.
I know.
Birthday.
Yeah.
You got a full year wiser from this
Yes.
discussion.
Yes.
That's right.
I've learned a lot. It's been good.
Mm-hmm.
Dog?
Look, man, love you guys. This is the therapy I needed. I needed to talk with my brothers.
Group
You know,
therapy.
we love this game. We live this game. We breathe it. To see the chat and everyone comes out. To see everyone say, hey, I can't wait to listen to the last word was pretty humbling because, you know, people really respect all of our content and all of our different perspectives. And yeah, look, you know, we're pulling for them, obviously. You know, we want, you know, the people who are still there that are trying to make this game the best it can be. We're pulling for them. And like Jarv beautifully said, our hearts go out to all the people let go. I've been laid off before. It's awful. And especially, you know, the security, the lack of that, and trying to figure out what your next move is going to be. All of that is stressful and tough. And what I've been trying to do is just trying to, you know, signal boost as much as I can with the friends in different other positions that may have opportunities because these are great people, you know. And yeah, as far as everyone else, you know, obviously, you know, I think I look at it from the content creator perspective of Destiny only. Obviously, I think about you, E. I think about a lot of people whose channels, you know, are focused primarily with this game and kind of shifting to multi, you know, format content, things of that nature. You know, do what you got to do, you know, and I would hope, not saying that this is the end or anything, that people support that because we're a great community and I don't want to see it go away. Obviously, I met each and every one of you because of this game. Like that's special to me. So, Trav, I'm never going to forget meeting you at, you know, doing Fire Team chat. And, you know, that whole bit was like, I've never been there. That was just awesome. And then E, obviously in person. Skarrow, I met you in person. Mano in person. You know, Jarv soon to be. You know what I mean? Soon to be in the UK and stuff like that. And I love this game. So community is dope. You know, we're going to ride this thing out. Me personally, the last thing I'll say is I've been in it for 10 years over and I need to see this through. Right? I need to know what the final shape is going to be. So that's where I'm at with it. But great show tonight. Great panel. Love y'all. I got my therapy today. I'm good.
Travis?
Yeah, I guess my closing comments would just be a reminder to be kind, people, not just to the people who were laid off, but to the people who continue to work at the company, and even to the people who made the decisions that they had to make to get where they are. I think empathy is important. You shouldn't attack Bungie. You shouldn't attack people that worked for Bungie or continue to work for Bungie. Either way, everybody's just doing their best out here, and you don't know the whole story. And the only people who do are the people who were in the room when these decisions were made. That said, you can still fervently disagree with them, as I often do. You can criticize them. I'm a professional critic. I would know a thing or two about it, but there's a way to do it respectfully without being cruel. And so I would just say, in all of this, please remember to be kind. I think it is one of the things that the Destiny community specifically is the best at doing, and I would like us to keep that badge of honor. Even in the darkest of Destiny's days. And I enjoy being on this half of the Titanic with each and every one of you.
Is the band playing?
Dressed to the
What's
nines,
going on?
dressed
The
to the
music's
nines.
going?
I mean, we're wearing our Sunday best. That's all
We
I'm
going
saying.
down?
Yeah, we're going down.
Jack.
Oh no, not the
Never
Jack.
let go, Jack.
Not the Jack.
I'll never let go, Jack.
Come on, E, it's too soon.
That's us in Destiny. That is.
Anybody have a whistle they can blow? Like that's the
Skarrow's got to be Rose.
Who's on the door?
Yeah, paint me. Come on.
Not the band. Well, that was funny.
Yeah.
Let's get Skarrow, man. What you got?
Yeah,
to say?
I don't even know, man. I'm just vibing. Whatever. What happens. I'll get the max triumph score. I'll be one of 10 people. I don't care. And so
you and Teddy commiserating to the end.
To the end, baby. Get that triumph score.
Yeah, it's kind. I don't know. I'm kind of. I've reached a point where it is what it is. All I want is to hit 100,000 subscribers. That number has not moved. Like
Where we at?
freaking still like 93. Like
Oh, come
people
on,
are. I fell off. That's how it goes. But I just need a little bit more. But
let's get them there.
You'll get
honestly,
there, bro.
like I don't know. So like when I was in grad school, like this was such a crutch for me. But now that I'm done, it's just kind of like, you know, I'm just kind of vibing. So I respect and I care for a lot of the people that work at Bungie, and I obviously wish them all the best. But it's just I'm kind of just angry and content at the same time. You know, it's a weird feeling where it's like,
Yeah.
it depends if I'm on Twitter or not. When I'm on Twitter, dude,
Yeah, your
That's
Twitter's
my-
on
You're
fire.
in the streets. I
love
see you,
reading the
Skarrow.
tweets,
You in the
man.
streets.
it's
Oh,
my weakness,
man.
dude.
Anger
I
on
just
Twitter,
see dumb people tweet, and it hurts me. So I can't contain myself. I'm
I saw.
gonna get
When I see
myself
your
in
tweets,
trouble
I
one
think,
day.
oh, they're
Was
the ones
it-
in my drafts that I never send.
Yeah,
You know what
I'm
I mean?
right.
It's like-
Don't press send, brother. Don't press send.
Skarrow, was it
Yeah,
you
well-
or something? There was like some, because anything that I say is always science related. Is like I tend to like I just need the Skarrow reaction to this. But it's just one of those, you know, like an interaction or something, and somebody interviewing a flat earther, and I'm going, my brain hurts just watching
Yes.
this right now because they're going.
That's
Yeah,
another great thing.
everybody has their own son, and I'm
Yeah,
what?
that's
What is
awesome.
happening? I'm going. Where's my chemistry buddy right now? Because
Yeah,
your mind would explode with me. So it's rough.
That's another great thing, since I don't rely on this for revenue. I just do it for fun. So it's like I can say whatever the hell I want, and so like I can do things like quote tweet that and say, you know, this is pretty much my chat, and call people dumb, because it's just like whatever. Like you either vibe with the joke or you don't. Like
Yeah.
I don't even know. But yeah.
no.
So. But yeah, man, I don't know. I wish everything the best, and I'll definitely be here. I'm not refunding anything, and Bungie's got to stop sending me silver. They're gonna get me killed. Like that's all. Every time it's so often, man. It's like every 2 months they're like, "Here's $50 more of silver," and it's like, dog, I can't. Take me, unsign me, get me out, get me out of this, dude. Every time, and so I've started taking it and making like criticism videos, and they just keep sending me silver, and it's like, okay, if you're gonna let me buy your stuff with your money and then criticize it, like be my guest.
Fair enough.
Today we will be critiquing this set of armor. It's lacking in here. Blah blah.
Well, it's pretty much like the big one I did recently was of the exotic augments, the legendary armor that like synergizes with certain exotics. I bought them all because I think they're cool with the money, with the silver they sent me. And I was like, yeah, these are really sick, but they definitely shouldn't be in Eververse. Don't buy them if they're in Eververse. They should be end game rewards. And
Yes.
and then the last time they're like, here's $100 of silver. And I was like, okay. I
Somebody
guess.
like the feedback.
So,
No
All
doubt.
press is good
Yeah.
press.
No
but
doubt.
and it's really annoying because like I'll go months without spending it, and then I'll like I'll be live streaming. Someone's like, "Oh, Skarrow bought $200 of silver." It's like, no, I haven't purchased silver in years, man. Like,
Yeah,
Community's like,
what
what are you buying all this silver?
I'm not. I promise.
Now we know where that 45% went.
Yeah.
Skarrow's pocket.
I used to make a Where is Zer video every week, and somebody pointed out that every week my silver amount was increasing for the same
Yeah.
reason, and they were like,
Uh,
"Wow, IGN
Oh,
on
they
that
tracked
bag,"
it.
and I was just
Oh,
like,
mad.
I haven't spent it. I
Yeah.
clearly don't care.
So,
Enough. Man,
Mano.
I'm gonna play the final shape. I'm gonna see what they do afterwards. I'm gonna hope for the best. I think every one of these awesome folks who have been here, and thank you for having me and inviting me and listening to all our voices, because we're the big thing is that we're all just passionate about this game, right? We're all just like super into it. It's been the glue that's held many of our lives together. I think for other people, like I was saying earlier, is we're grieving. And to Travis's point, is be kind to other people. Try to remember that there are other human beings out there. And it's really easy when you get to Twitter or X or what is a zitter, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to
gonna
call
pop
it.
a zitter?
I have. It's one of those things where I don't spend as much time on Twitter anymore, because I feel like no matter what, like it just brings up negativity, because that triggers the algorithm. Spend less time on Twitter. Like, go play some other games and things like that, because Destiny will be back. We want the people who were laid off. We want the best for them. I think everyone has said it really well. Like, we are pulling for them, and that's the reason why there's been such this sentiment. So And again, if you're a content creator in Destiny, thanks for being part of the journey too. We're not ending it here, but we're all hoping, like the best case scenario is that they see this, they pull themselves up by their bootstraps, whatever they have, and they go forward, and then they absolutely kill it. I want to hope for it. I hope it's the best. I think we all want that, not only for our careers, but just for personally. Like, we want to just end on like, yes, let's do this. This is awesome. So I think that that's the final thing. And just and having a little bit of optimism is a good thing. It doesn't all need to be doom and gloom all the time. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. So
Nice. Well
I think that's the way to go with it. Thanks for having us all on, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure,
No,
man.
it's
Y'all
been,
family.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pleasure. I asked, you guys were all happy to jump on. It was probably the easiest asks I've ever had. Be like, hey, do you want to talk about all this? And you guys are like, yep. That was the easiest 6-panel
I just want to
podcast.
get it off my chests, man. It's been up
Yeah.
here for like
Yeah,
Been here.
no, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Shadow Rider just on Twitter a second ago. He was just like, I'm gonna pass out now. It's like I'm glad I stayed up for it. It was like, as Cog said, it was the therapy session some of us definitely needed. That's kind of the thing. Travis said it. Be kind. All these people are going through stuff right now, whether they work there, whether they lost their job. We will never know all of the details until 10 years later, Jason Schreier writes a book about it, and then we'll get the details. But until then, we won't know. And all we can do, yeah, or I'll read her book too. Man, she's been killing it lately. Yeah, please go read Rebecca Valentine's article. She does amazing work. She's rivaling the best of them out there with some amazing journalism. And we get to see like those type of people get a chance to do what they do best. Trying to get some of the things that not a lot of us get access to, but their sources and just their professional way to report those things get us information that more of us need. And some of that transparency is good. Sometimes it hurts to see behind the scenes a little bit, but it's good to see behind the scenes sometimes too. And definitely can't forget, everybody, please blow up Jarv's Twitter. Even if you hear this a week later, Jarv's Twitter, happy birthday. All the time.
birthday,
Just I want to
brother.
hear that. Happy birthday. Just I want to
Happy
see that on
birthday.
Oh, I
Twitter
was going to get cancelled for a
constantly.
second. I was like, where are you going with this one, E?
Blow- Happy birthday. I had to turn it right. But no, it's like I'm gonna be here. I mean, I've played Destiny for 10 years. Of course, we're all gonna be here. We've seen this thing this far. I've got to know what happens. I'll still log in for the episodes, and I'm still probably gonna play those for years to come just to know what happens. Even if, my coverage goes in a completely different direction, there's still going to be a part of me. Shadow, what's up, man? He made it too as well. We definitely would have had you on as well. Bumped into him. He was passing through my area recently, so I got to have lunch with him and Patty Cakes. So that was fun.
Now, Patty.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they were at the YouTube, like kind of YouTube creator event that was here actually like 15 minutes from my house. I was like, okay, so I have to go. And that's the thing that kind of actually hurt me a little bit more than some of the stuff personally was, yeah, it's like the chance of going into Variety, and I've had some success, but to keep seeing how that goes is going to be a journey to go on. But one of my worries was like GCX, something like this, and you see, and I worry about the future of longevity of that and conventions and how all that stuff's going. And this group of creators that we get to hang out with and amazing people in the community that we have met, all from this game. And I think that's one of those things that the game may have some ups and downs, and we're definitely in one of the lowest points that we've had that I can honestly remember beyond most. But just think about what we've all gained by playing this game, and we've definitely had some amazing times with it. We're going to go down on the roller coaster, and we're going to a pretty low point right now, but hopefully it comes out the other side to something good, and we'll have to see. So as usual, you can call me a shill or whatever, but I'm looking forward to seeing if they can do something nice for a delivery for Final Shape, and take the time you need. That's all I'm going to say. Take the time you need. I don't care if it's 4 or 5, 6 months. We will be here. And, I've got a giant backlog, so I've got a few other things to play. So it'd be nice to have a little chance to do that. But chat, you guys have all been amazing. Seriously, there's so much chat going on. I probably missed half of it. If you guys said anything to us, we're sorry we missed it. Gentlemen, the guests, next time I need to try and get more ladies on here. I am looking at a lot of guys here on the channel, on the panel, so I gotta
Too
get a
dude
little
friendly, too many bros.
gotta get a little
Hey,
more
bro.
variety in the panel. But for quick asks, you guys did come through, and I greatly
I get that a
appreciate
lot.
it. Came through for a quick ask, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Skarrow's good at the quickies. Now we know at least, so that's good.
Oh,
More
man.
moms you can fit into one day, brother.
Here you go. Well, it has been an amazing show. Thank you guys very much. Happy birthday, Jarv, one more time, and I'm not going to say it, but at least 20 more times. So just watch your Twitter. We'll be blowing that one up. But for everybody,
Appreciate it, man.
thank you. Cog, Jarv, Skarrow, Mano, Travis, thank you all. And for this episode, it has been
The last word.
The last word.
Last word.